Chapter 161, Cleaning House. No tricks, we're three, Jillian said. Hearing that, Louis and the other Abyss Reincarnator relaxed a little. They had been terrified a moment ago. Ming was a man of few words and decisive moves. He didn't waste time with speeches. He simply manipulated a skyscraper midair and hurled it down onto the other Abyss Reincarnator's head. The Reincarnator panicked and tried to flee, but his feet were stuck to the ground. In that split second, the building slammed into him. Ding! Killed an enemy Reincarnator, gained 1,000 points. Obtained item, Advanced Life Potion X1. Ming never lingered. As soon as he moved, he struck to finish it. What? Faction protection is off? Jillian raised his hand and summoned a swarm of bats that dove toward Ming. Louis also reacted, drawing dual pistols and firing non-stop. Ming opened a portal behind himself. The bats and bullets all passed through and struck the attackers' own backs. The bats didn't harm Jillian, but Louis wasn't so lucky. 2 bullets hit him and the bats swarmed his face. His lips turned purple as if poisoned. Help! Help! Louis struggled, but Jillian ignored him and charged Ming. Jillian's speed was incredible, but Ming was quicker. A lightning chain, fully charged, shot out and pierced Jillian's chest at lightning speed. Jillian, a vampire with tenacious vitality, shifted his heart at the last moment and avoided dying. Against a high constitution reincarnator like Jillian, the lightning chain's damage was limited. If not for the source power bonus, it might not have penetrated at all. Ming pushed the advantage. When lightning chain alone wasn't enough, he turned to the mirror dimension, an ability he'd been practicing in the training ground for nearly a month. Tall buildings began folding and raining down toward Jillian. With no place to flee, he dispersed into a swarm of bats to reduce the impact. Boom! Many bats were crushed, but most survived and reformed into his original body. Jillian panted, pale. The loss of so many bats had harmed his world origin. He turned to find Louis on the ground, hands twisted and useless. Ming had used the collapsing building to finish him off. Ming picked Louis up but did not kill him. Louis's bloodline must have enhanced his physique. He'd survived 2 of Ming's hammer attacks. Seeing they weren't going to be executed immediately, Jillian decided to cooperate. What do you want to know? He asked. Why did the Abyss become what it is? Ming asked. He'd always been curious. From what he'd seen, the Abyss once had the pedigree to be one of the 9 major factions. But how had it fallen so far, with almost no proper reincarnators left? I didn't see it happen, Jillian said, standing after a breath. When I arrived, the space was already dilapidated. Back then, there were still a fair number of reincarnators, and most of the facilities worked. But when the 8 major factions encountered the Abyss, they issued kill orders. The Abyss took a terrible hit. Afterward, some smart reincarnators decided to abandon missions during faction confrontations to save themselves. The 8 major factions tacitly accepted that, and that's how things became what they are now. That's it? Nothing from the old reincarnators? Ming pressed. He wanted more than a rough outline. No, the reincarnators who knew the truth are all dead. Fear flickered across Jillian's face. The 8 spaces had obviously sealed off whatever had happened. That explained why most reincarnators in the reincarnation space knew little about the Abyss. Ming understood the tacit approval too. A faction confrontation was a fight for world origin. Keeping cowardly reincarnators ensured the Abyss would fail missions and world origin would be plundered. No wonder other space facilities were shut down. It also explained why the Abyss had prioritized sending Ming to kill these reincarnators. What about our allies? Ming asked Louis. Their allies in this mission world were from heaven. Louis was nervous. He'd arrived in the Abyss even later than Jillian and knew little. Suddenly he brightened. Oh right, I know the main god faction's effect. Ming listened. He knew each faction had a unique effect, but he didn't know most of them. What is it? He asked. Main god teams are always 5 people. For every teammate who dies, the others get stronger. Louis blurted out. About 10% per death. That's significant, Ming said, wondering why the main god teams had seemed so cohesive earlier if their effect required sacrifices. He pushed. And heaven? Louis froze, then scrambled for time. Promise you won't kill me first and I'll tell you. Ming cracked his neck and smiled without humor. He clearly wouldn't be intimidated. Ding. Killed an enemy reincarnator, gained 1,000 points. Obtained item, ebony and ivory. Do you know? Li Ming asked Jialin. Cough, of course. Jialin said through blood at the corner of his mouth. Cautious. Heaven's faction effect is extremely powerful. So much people say it breaks the rules. He was gone. Jialin launched forward, talons slashing at Li Ming. Li Ming's Spider-Man sense flared, and he dodged, but Jialin's speed still scored a scratch on his arm. Li Ming struck back with a punch meant to pierce through. His arm trembled, and the blow only dented Jialin's chest. Ha! The vampire virus makes you uncomfortable, doesn't it? Jialin said, gasping. He pulled out a red, blood-drop pill and swallowed it. His chest immediately rose, and the wound healed rapidly. Li Ming felt a moment's discomfort, then his strength returned. His Spider-Man bloodline granted enhanced immunity, and the vampire virus hadn't broken through his defenses. Li Ming shrugged off the scratch, retrieved the Gotham scepter, and drew the staff sword. If Jialin wouldn't talk, he could simply end him. Jialin was an old Abyss reincarnator. The longer this dragged on, the more risks there were. Li Ming planned to try a new move. He infused source power into the staff sword. The blade glowed faintly blue. Jialin sensed the danger and tried to flee, but the surrounding buildings folded and blocked his path. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me Heaven's faction effect, and I won't kill you, Li Ming said. I don't know, Jialin stammered, then suddenly tried to bargain. But I know a lot of other things. I can tell you everything. Li Ming was disappointed. Jialin had been playing for time, probably to find an opening. Li Ming didn't really have a way to stop what he was about to do once he used it. Jialin reverted into a swarm of bats to try to escape. Li Ming swung the staff sword. Source power surged from the blade, forming a tremendous sword chi that swept forward. The energy was so intense that the mirror dimension along its path began to disintegrate. He'd reached the limit of his controllable energy. The sword chi crushed through the swarm. Not a single bat remained. Ding! Killed an enemy reincarnator, gained 1,000 points. Obtained item, Guardian's Necklace. Chapter 162. This is definitely a supernatural world. Li Ming realized this after he'd first mastered source power application level 0.2. The technique he'd used was a source power release. The sword energy was only its external manifestation. In practice, he could have used a staff or even his fingers. By integrating his spirit into the source power, he greatly amplified its energy, though at the cost of a heavy drain on his source power reserves and his mental stamina. Being new to it, he couldn't control it perfectly. He'd killed Jialin in one strike, largely because he'd caught him off guard, first trapping them in the mirror dimension to gain the home field advantage. Strategy was part of strength, too. Source power had other benefits. It let him freely develop and shape techniques. Of course, he still needed to learn more, to stand on the shoulders of giants. Camartage and its knowledge came to mind. Li Ming dispelled the fragile mirror dimension with a wave of his hand. It was a powerful skill, but the maximum space it could form depended on him. Then he checked his spoils. He'd already taken the advanced life potion and hadn't even used the small life potion from before. The next items were 2 pistols, black and white, obviously modeled on Dante's ebony and ivory from Devil May Cry. They felt perfect in his hands. Their stats were better than ordinary pistols. Each had 7-round capacity for normal bullets, but that didn't bother him. He could use source power to modify the magazines, linking them to an ammo depot and essentially granting infinite physical bullets. Capcom's retcons didn't matter when you had magic. Ebony, black, quality, excellent, type weapon, holder, Li Ming, effect, shooting accuracy plus 30%, bullet power plus 50%, can fire energy bullets and charge attacks, upgradable. Ivory, white, quality, excellent, type weapon, holder, Li Ming, effect, shooting speed 30%, bullet power 50%, can fire energy bullets and charge attacks, upgradable. The last piece of loot was a necklace, Guardian's Necklace, quality fine, type necklace, Li Ming, effect spirit plus 5, constitution plus 9. Upgradable. It was far better than the yellowed necklace he'd been wearing, so Li Ming swapped it on immediately. His attributes updated. Strength, 4998, Constitution, 15, 116 plus 9. Agility, 439, Spirit, 72, 67 plus 5. He'd need to raise his spirit further, since it governed his energy reserves. It was already morning. Not tired, Ming headed straight to the factory where Daniela Ramos worked, the mission target Friday had found. He knew Danny and her brother Diego both worked there. It was working hours now, so their home was likely empty, though a Terminator or other danger was possible. When he arrived, the factory was a mess. Vehicles were overturned, walls were damaged, and police swarmed the scene. He stopped a shaken worker and, after a little persuasion with Ebony, got the story. A gunfight had broken out inside. Drug dealers had chased workers through the plant. One worker stole a pickup to escape, and the pursuers had gone so far as to chase with a heavy truck. In all, 6 or 7 people had fled. It sounded like the people from heaven had already found Danny. "Friday, check city traffic. Where's the disturbance?" Ming asked. "Apologies, sir. Current city surveillance is unavailable. Satellites cannot track," Friday replied quickly. Ming wasn't surprised. Any networked system was an obvious target for other reincarnators. But total blackout of city surveillance and satellites? That was worrying. He found a corner, took out his Mark 45, activated it, and followed collision marks along the road. The Mark 45's flight speed was over Mach 5. In the distance, he saw 3 vehicles rushing along the highway, 2 ahead and 1 in pursuit. The rear car's driver was dressed like a priest, shooting at the cars in front. A violent priest. Ming realized the priest was the Terminator in disguise. That differed from the original plot. Puzzlingly, besides Danny, her brother, and Grace, the enhanced human who protected Danny in the original storyline, the 3 occupants of the leading car should all be reincarnators. Why were they being chased by the Terminator? The reincarnators inside the lead car were loudly debating that very question over their team channel. "Why are we running? We have so many people," one complained. "Look at the mission," a steady voice replied. "Antagonistic mission. Kill other faction reincarnators. Current number of people 6. Number of kills 0. Mission evaluation based on number of kills." "What? The other side lost 3 people?" the first speaker said, shocked. "Why didn't we notice?" "It's not certain it's the other side. It could be the Abyss. 4 reincarnators died in less than 12 hours. This world is strange." "How long, mechanic?" the team member asked. "How long to finish preparing?" "At least another day. You guys hold on. Avoid engaging if you can. Wait for me." A supernatural world. This must be a supernatural world. Kimura, who'd been wearing a Shinigami uniform earlier, shouted, "I haven't detected any energy reactions in this world," their wizard countered. "But everyone saw the priest with their own eyes. He died, and whatever killed him disguised itself as him." "An ordinary world with bizarre deaths still fits the characteristics of a supernatural world," Kimura insisted. "A supernatural world doesn't necessarily have energy reactions. But a supernatural world without energy reactions would be the scariest," the wizard said, shaking his head. "We haven't even talked to the mission targets. They might have clues." If Ming had been eavesdropping, he would have wanted to tell them something else entirely. This world's original plot was stranger than any of them guessed, full of causal twists and paradoxes. For now, that was neither here nor there. There were too many cars on the highway. Danny's vehicle lost balance and slammed into the guardrail, dragging the reincarnator's car with it and setting off a chain of collisions. The heavy chasing truck was forced to a stop as well. "Nick, go check on the mission targets," someone ordered. Kimura leapt out, drew his Zanpakuto, and planted himself on the only path the priest could take. His sword hadn't activated Shikai. His blade remained unreleased. The wizard took up a defensive position nearby. Looking at his teammate, Kimura muttered, "If this is a supernatural entity, dealing with it would be easier." Kimura radiated the spiritual pressure of a Shinigami, a force that weighed on the soul itself, an effective method against supernatural foes. The priest only tilted his head, as if puzzled by the human who'd struck a pose in front of him. "Kimura, be careful. He's a robot," shouted a teammate who'd run up to the mission targets and sent a warning back. On that cue, the wizard unleashed a massive fireball into the priest. It made the creature stagger back 2 steps, but then something strange happened. A dark liquid spurted from the point of impact, like a mud puddle hit by a rock, and within 2 or 3 seconds, the priest's form reconstituted itself and returned to its previous appearance. The wizard turned to his teammate, baffled. "A robot?" he repeated. Chapter 163. Don't ask, just get in the car. The facts were simple. One Terminator against 3 Reincarnators and an augmented human was a losing fight. The Rev-9 hunting Danny was the most advanced model, an alloy endoskeleton with a shape-shifting liquid exterior. It didn't die easily. Only a few people in the area even knew how to take one down. Grace did, but she wasn't going to risk it. Ming knew too. He'd already taken off his Iron Man-like armor, blended into the crowd, and was closing in. And one more person had just arrived, Sarah Connor. With a thunderous boom, Sarah fired a rocket launcher at the Rev-9's exposed skeleton, blasting it backwards. Before the fluid form could fully reconstitute, she tossed a high-explosive grenade to interrupt its regeneration. Sarah Connor made a dazzling entrance. "A liquid Terminator," she said, hair streaked gray, 50 or 60, but still physically formidable. To destroy it, you need an EMP, liquid nitrogen, or similar methods. "The Rev-9 can't be destroyed. You only survive it," Grace snapped. "I've killed liquid robots," Sarah replied, and that shut Grace up. Danny clutched her younger brother Diego and stared at the stranger. "Who are you? Who are you all?" Ming poked his head out of a nearby car and called, "Hey, I think you folks could use a lift." Danny was no longer surprised by another stranger. Grace didn't bother with introductions. She pulled Danny toward Sarah's car. "You drive ahead," Grace ordered. Ming stepped up to Sarah's window. She took one look at the Rev-9 struggling to recover and didn't waste a second. She climbed in and drove off. "Come on, I'm going with you," Ming said, then muttered something that only other reincarnators would catch. "May you unexpectedly encounter the Abyss." Kimura and the others from the Heaven faction tensed. The Abyss was hostile to most groups. Sarah glanced over the ragged group, Reincarnators, an augmented human, a frightened kid, and decided they could be useful. She'd come to kill Terminators. Seeing Danny stirred something in her old instincts, so she was willing to help. "We should move," Sarah said. "The Terminator will be back on its feet soon." "Our car's broken," Danny said. "We have 7 people and only 1 car," Grace added, eyes on the road. "Danny, let's go." Grace tugged her insistently toward Sarah's car. The Heaven faction's team captain, the mechanic, pinged their channel. "Ask him if the Reincarnators who died were his teammates." Ming answered to the channel. "Yes, all 3. They died without a trace, so I came to you." "That's why I joined up with the main God faction last night," Ming explained aloud, making his story fit the facts. The 3 Heaven Reincarnators exchanged looks and, after a moment's hesitation, climbed in. The mission was real. They had to move. Besides, each extra person increased their chances. Ming fell in beside Sarah and let her lead. He didn't want to pick a fight with the main God faction while they and the Heaven faction were still intact. Better to let them weaken each other first. On the drive, the wizard, cautious as ever, asked, "I heard Abyss teams sell missions to rack up points. Did you not take any this time?" "You sell missions?" Kimura's eyes went wide. He'd thought the Abyss always lost faction fights. He hadn't expected such opportunism. Ming admitted it plainly. "We made a deal with someone from the main God faction last night. Soon after, all 3 of my teammates were dead. No clues, no useful info." The car fell quiet. The Heaven faction had lost members too. That made Ming's story plausible. "You weren't attacked?" someone asked. "No." "By whom?" "Unknown, but it wasn't the main God side." That was enough for them. If the main God faction had already paid, they wouldn't have turned on their own contractors. The problem, they agreed, was something in this world, like that liquid Terminator they'd just seen. Sarah slid the car to a stop at a fork in the road. "Do you have phones or anything that can connect to the internet?" she asked. "Yes," one of them said. "Yes," another said. "I threw mine away," Ming answered. The Heaven faction members gaped. Sarah nodded. "Good. Throw them all away." "Are you really here to protect Danny? You don't even know who she is," Sarah asked the Heaven Reincarnators. "Terminators can access every network. Unless you've figured out how to kill it, don't reveal your location." "How do you know?" the wizard asked Ming. "I threw away anything that could be used to track me," Ming said. "Otherwise, I couldn't have survived this long." The Reincarnators understood and discarded their devices. Sarah drove them farther, slowed through a small town, and had everyone split up to avoid being traced. Danny went into a pharmacy to buy a pile of medication. Grace, being augmented, needed drugs to replenish her combat energy after fights, or she'd go into shock and die. They changed cars and finally stopped at a hotel. In the hotel room, Grace explained where she'd come from. 2042. Years earlier, an AI called Legion had rebelled against humanity and waged war. To wipe out the human resistance, Legion sent machines back to 2020 to assassinate Danny. Grace had been sent by the future human resistance to protect her. Sarah listened with a kind of hollow recognition. She'd lived through nearly the same story, twice. The original Skynet timeline had sent Terminators to kill her and her son. With help from future resistance fighters, they had both survived, and they'd believed they'd destroyed Skynet until new timelines and new machines showed up. The events of Terminator Dark Fate, Sarah knew, followed Terminator 2 and ignored later sequels. In their experience, timelines could branch anytime history changed, creating parallel universes. Sarah had watched that pattern more than once. Hearing about Danny, she thought of her younger self, someone protecting the mother of a future resistance leader. Grace didn't tell them that Danny herself was the resistance leader in her timeline. After the Protectors finished their introductions, it was the Reincarnator's turn. Ming, the Heaven faction's Kimura and Nick exchanged glances, and then all turned to the wizard. He looked the sharpest of the group, calculated, cautious, and ready to ask the right questions next. Chapter 164. It was me who snitched. We're from another parallel timeline. Our mission is to protect Daniela Ramos, the wizard said smoothly. Someone wants to kill her and destabilize the timeline. Our goal is to preserve it. The wizard, an old hand among reincarnators, lied as easily as he breathed. Sarah, staring at him, suddenly interrupted. I've seen them. No, not these people. Back in 1997, there were others. They were trying to protect me, too. Ming's mind stirred. From the moment they'd entered this world, he'd seen the abyss prompt. Current world connected, explored. That meant someone else had already descended into the Terminator 2 timeline. Reincarnators who entered worlds that had already been explored couldn't turn them into exclusive worlds after completing their missions. At least that was what Ming had gathered in the reincarnation space. But had the reincarnators who went to 1997 been careful? Had they avoided changing the plot, or was there some kind of corrective force in that timeline? Where's your other teammate? Ming asked, riding on the roof of the train with the rest of them. Preparing for battle, the wizard answered, curt and unwilling to say more. Ming pouted but didn't press. He was preparing too. A yacht was docked in the Gulf of Mexico, where Friday was constantly manufacturing Mark III Iron Man armor, materials shipped in from warehouses across the globe. He was only committing 7 days to this world. After that, it would no longer concern him. Sarah explained why she'd been so good at hunting Terminators. Someone had texted her exact times and locations of their arrivals. Grace, the cybernetically enhanced member of the group, took Sarah's phone and, using future tech, began tracing the messages. Because Sarah kept her phone in a foil-lined chip bag, it had blocked the usual cell signals, so she hadn't been tracked that way. The texts, Grace discovered, all originated from Toledo, right on the U.S. border. Before Grace traveled through time, the Resistance had tattooed a set of coordinates on her. If she ever needed help, she was to go there. That, too, was in Toledo. The two clues pointed to the same place, so the team decided to head straight for Toledo. There was one immediate problem. Danny and Diego were Mexicans without immigration papers. Sarah Connor was wanted across the United States, and the other Reincarnators had no legal identities. Only Ming had an implanted identity, and he still lacked the immigration documentation you needed. But crossing into the U.S. from Mexico was a whole industry. Smugglers made their living from it, and Danny's uncle was one of them. They had to find him first. What about the main God faction? Ming asked, curious. Aren't they supposed to be on a hostile mission? Why haven't they moved? The main God reincarnators focus on the mission. They prefer a single, decisive strike, the wizard said, a flicker of worry under his calm. If they haven't found their chance, they won't reveal themselves. Ming nodded and closed his eyes to rest. Kimura and Nick, who had been keeping watch, relaxed when he did. But as soon as Ming let his mind drift, a faint light screen bloomed in front of him. Quentin had been right. Edith did have an invisible contact lens interface. On his internal map, the glowing markers of the main god faction blinked into view, clustered near the house of Danny's uncle, the very place they were heading. They hadn't been subtle. After raising such a scene earlier, the main god people had quickly pinpointed their target. The Heaven faction had tried to seal off their tracks online and avoid detection, but there was always the possibility of a leak. Someone had snitched. Ming felt a cold realization settle over him. He had anonymously fed the main god faction their destination, after disguising his message, of course. What shocked him more was what his other marker showed. The Terminator Rev 9 was also heading there. In the original script, the Terminator hadn't discovered their location. His communications with Friday had not used public networks, so he was sure he hadn't exposed them electronically. He and the wizard had both been monitoring the Rev 9. Only Ming's source power was a level above the wizard's magic, invisible to the wizard. That meant no one else should have known about the Terminator either. Yet Rev 9 was on its way. If the Rev 9 attacked them, it would draw the main god faction into a hunt. In this world, the main god faction's strength outweighed the Heaven faction's. There was no reason for the wizard to gamble on that outcome unless he could wipe out every enemy. If Ming were taking the risk, he wouldn't unless he was certain of success. Perhaps, Ming thought, the Heaven faction captain had a trump card. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. He let himself curl into a comfortable position and hoped both sides would start fighting. They reached Danny's uncle's house by morning. After persuasion, the old smuggler agreed to lead them across the border. Danny forced Diego to stay behind, too dangerous for her brother. They drove to a lonely trail and followed the uncle on foot. Every smuggler used different routes. It was their livelihood. They traveled through the night without meeting any official patrols, safe, it seemed, until Friday warned Ming of drones. There had been 3 passes. Grace heard one and ordered everyone to hide. The other 2 flew by and photographed them. As they neared the border, Ming's spider sense tightened into alarm. Something was very wrong. This iteration of Rev 9 had a high level of cunning. It had infiltrated the Border Patrol Command, disguised itself, and ordered a lie-in-wait. As they stepped into the ambush, 7 or 8 vehicles and 20 to 30 uniformed officers blocked the trail, surrounding them and forcing them to stand down. Surrendering would be too passive, Nick said of the Heaven faction. Kimura, next to him, quietly drew his Zanpakuto. The wizard spoke only at the last second. He knew that failing to counterattack now would be inexcusable. "Attack!" he barked. Nick gripped the cross at his throat and began to chant. A pure white radiance burst from the 3 Heaven faction members, forming a shimmering shield that took bullets in blinding streaks. Kimura's release command rang out. "Burn Ryujinjaka!" His katana expanded into a massive blade wreathed in roaring flames. "Getsuga Tensho!" he yelled, and the fiery arc he unleashed cut toward the oncoming line. The battle had begun. Chapter 165, the main god faction's unique combat style. Boom! Spiritual pressure and fire combined into a crescent-shaped slash that instantly blew up the 2 police cars in front of them. The officers around it scattered to safety. The wizard unleashed magic as well, raising jagged earth in front of the police and trapping several of them under the sudden terrain. Taking advantage of the chaos, Grace led Danny and slipped out of the encirclement, though her face was full of astonishment. The wizard had mentioned special abilities, but she hadn't expected anything this extreme. Ming and Sarah followed behind. He kept himself deliberately restrained. Suddenly, his spider sense started buzzing, and Grace heard something from above. "Drone!" she shouted and shoved Danny aside. A missile struck as they rolled away. Fortunately, no one was hit. But Ming's warning had only grown stronger. The main god faction had arrived. From his vantage, he saw Hobbs, someone he'd met before, speeding straight for Danny. Ming was the person nearest to her, but he forced himself not to intervene. He wouldn't expose his strength now. Besides, protecting Danny was the Heaven faction's mission. This reincarnation squad was clearly stronger than the 2 he'd faced in the assassin world. The Heaven faction wasn't likely to be taken by surprise. If he was wrong, so be it. His primary objective remained killing the hostile reincarnators. If the mission target died, The Heaven faction might fight the main God faction desperately to lessen their punishment. Li Ming caught himself entertaining a dangerous thought and dismissed it. It hadn't come to that yet. So he kept still, pretending to be dazed by the missile blast as Hobbs closed in. Only when Hobbs's hand was about to touch Danny did Li Ming slowly turn his head, as if noticing the danger at the last second. Buzz! A force field barrier flared around Danny, knocking Hobbs back. At the same time, several small robots burst from the ground and detonated around him. Danny, shielded by the barrier, was unharmed. Hobbs was thrown clear. Mechanic? Hobbs scrambled up. He took the explosions like a tank, only a few shallow cuts. Li Ming thought, as expected, the wizard had laid traps to counter an ambush. But he glanced at Kimura and the other attacker wreaking havoc near the police. Had they not been informed? That seemed odd. You finally showed up. Hobbs wiped blood from his face and flexed until he looked even more massive. He scanned for opponents and then barked, "Since you're here, don't leave." He charged Danny with renewed speed and hammered the barrier. Cracks spidered across it. Li Ming's ears picked up a surprised gasp from somewhere, but when he looked there was nothing visible. Invisible? He frowned. More small robots detonated. Hobbs managed one impact before being pushed back again. Still, the barrier was faltering. "Danny, run!" Grace yanked the stunned girl away and sprinted toward a police cruiser. At that moment, besides Janet, the logistics specialist, 3 other reincarnators from the main God faction appeared on the field. One of them bore straight for Danny. Li Ming couldn't afford to slack, so he intercepted that attacker. Bang! Muscles collided, and Li Ming sent the main God reincarnator flying, though he himself stepped back to brace. Through the team channel, a voice reported, "He's evenly matched with me. This Abyss reincarnator is blocking me." "Don't let him near the mission target," Hobbs ordered over the comms. "Be aware, Abyss reincarnators have strong life-saving abilities. Just suppress him." Hobbs launched again. Grace tried to stop him, but was brushed aside like a fly. More small robots rose to fire shells and lasers, hemming him in. But Hobbs wasn't after Danny this time. 35 degrees back left, 25 meters, energy signature detected. Janet snapped the coordinates into the main God channel. "Found you." Hobbs's stance shifted. His waist hunched, his limbs lengthened, his face sharpened, and with the change his speed and strength spiked. He covered the 25 meters in a heartbeat and plowed through every robot in his path. A massive explosion followed. When the smoke cleared, a middle-aged man in mechanical armor was thrown out of the blast. His chest plate gaped with a new, bloody hole. Wounds crackled along Hobbs' body as well. The armored man was the Heaven faction's leader, the mechanic. He stared at the torn armor and muttered, half in awe. To have a werewolf bloodline, gene enhancement serum, and mental enhancement all at once. You really don't care about bloodline conflicts, do you? Humph. When you're with the main God faction, why would you fear conflicts? Hobbs scoffed. The mechanic shook his head. You're strong, top tier tier 3, but your teammates aren't. He was referring to the 2 main God reincarnators who were being ganged up on by the wizard, Kimura, and Nick. 2 against 3, and one of the main God reincarnators was already badly wounded. Hunter, I'll resurrect you, Hobbs said flatly. The mechanic's face tightened as realization hit him. He pivoted and shouted, Careful, stay away from that severely wounded person. The wizard heard and broke off at once. The other main God reincarnator also retreated rapidly. But Nick and Kimura were too close to escape. The wounded reincarnator, Hunter, grabbed Nick's arm. Kimura slashed with his Zanpakuto, but Hunter didn't dodge. He moved closer to Nick and, to everyone's horror, his body erupted in furious flames. Bang! Hunter had deliberately detonated himself. Li Ming watched the bright, savage explosion from a distance. He checked his mission display as the blast settled. Confrontation mission, kill hostile reincarnators. Current number 7, kills 3. Mission evaluation based on number of kills. Faction protection is off. Nick from the Heaven faction was dead. Li Ming actually felt a sting of regret. He hadn't even been given the chance to finish him. He chided himself for forgetting to set his automatic mission updates. Chapter 166, Shocking News, a 20-year plan? Not only had Nick died on Heaven's side, but Kimura, wielding a Zanpakuto, had been blasted by a self-detonation and was badly wounded. He had to down several healing potions just to recover, and even then he was temporarily out of the fight. The wizard, the mechanic, another main god reincarnator, and Hobbs were locked in two-on-two fights. The other officers had long since been killed or fled. With one member of the main god's team dead, the faction effect kicked in. The survivors were subtly strengthened. Even Li Ming felt his opponent's power increase. Their strikes hit harder, their presence more imposing. The enhancement path of that opponent seemed similar to Hobbs's, focused on close-quarters physical combat, though not as far along as Hobbs. He fought without weapons, using gauntlets, and his skill was far from weak. Li Ming had disguised himself as a physically enhanced reincarnator too, so the fight stayed even. The two battled back and forth, intense and focused. Unlike the others, Li Ming was holding back, watching the battlefield while he fought. He noticed Sarah Connor had frozen the moment the mechanic appeared. "Sarah, go to Danny," he called. Sarah Connor was a character he respected, the tragedy of her fate, her relentless will, and he pushed her. To his surprise, she turned to him and said, "That man, I've seen him before." Li Ming's heart jumped. He activated the mirror dimension, slipping himself, Sarah, and the main god reincarnator inside. He stopped pretending. When the reincarnator threw a punch, Li Ming calmly caught it, flashed behind him, and drove his fist into the man's spine. The man's vision went white. He collapsed, unconscious. Li Ming didn't kill him, just paralyzed and knocked him out. Main god people are troublesome because even after death they can buff teammates. Leaving them half dead, cut off from contact, was the safest option. Li Ming flicked his fingers to shift spatially and tossed the reincarnator aside. "You've seen the mechanic before? In 1997? He asked Sarah. She was guarded. Instead of answering directly, she asked, "Who are you, really?" Li Ming's cover answers were always ready. "Formally, I'm with the Time Management Bureau." As he spoke, he sketched a straight line in source power and explained, "In the normal timeline, after 1997, Skynet should no longer exist. Your son, John Connor, would have grown up and become a beloved senator." Those words hit Sarah hard. She had always believed that once Skynet was destroyed, John would be safe. He would lead the resistance, and in a peaceful world, could achieve great things. Li Ming extended another line from the first. But this timeline diverged. The turning point here is John's death. "Something went wrong," Sarah whispered. Li Ming pressed the point, subtly slandering the mechanic. "And the mechanic never told us he'd been here before. That's very odd. Don't you find that strange?" For Sarah, John's death was everything. Li Ming's insinuations took root. "You mean he was here in 1997? She asked, alarmed. "Yes, and didn't you notice? He's been avoiding you, acting like he doesn't want to be recognized. It was a fabrication." The mechanic hadn't shown his face before Sarah appeared. But Li Ming's suggestion, sudden concealment, deliberate avoidance, combined with the idea of timeline tampering, stoked her imagination. "In 1997, Skynet sent a liquid Terminator to hunt me and John," Sarah said, remembering. "The future John sent a protector too, and there was another team, 4 people." She recounted the mission in detail. The mechanic was one of them. His name was Garcia Stewart, but he wasn't this powerful back then. "Did his teammates survive?" Li Ming asked. "No. They all died." Li Ming thought carefully. He'd seen the mechanic's skill. True to his title, he controlled machines. What would someone like that do when he encountered Terminators, self-aware, powerful, multifunctional machines from the future that could be mass-produced? The first impulse would be to seize them. But in 1997, Terminator tech was future tech. Judging by the mechanic's current condition, he hadn't obtained it then. After all, Skynet had been destroyed. Still, not getting it then didn't mean he couldn't come back later and try again. Li Ming's mind raced. If the mechanic could return to mission worlds and Skynet could be present again, the mechanic might get his hands on Terminator tech eventually. "Sarah?" Li Ming asked the crucial question. "Was Stewart's team assigned to protect you, to destroy Skynet, or both?" "Both," she said firmly. "Someone on their team explicitly said they had to find a way to destroy Skynet. I remember it clearly." 20 years had passed, but that mission had seared itself into her memory. In the end, Stewart himself went to blow up a Skynet chip that was still being developed. Li Ming's theory tightened. So is it possible Stewart let Skynet survive, or did something else happen that led to John's death? You know how valuable Skynet and Terminators are to someone skilled with machines, Sarah said. The possibility made her suspicious and frightened at once. Whether it was true or not, Li Ming's connection between John's death and the mechanic planted doubt in her. She looked to him, uncertain. What should I do? She was brave compared to ordinary people, but against true threats, she was close to fodder. Her suspicions alone wouldn't help. Go to that coordinate, Li Ming said, pointing to the tattoo Grace wore. The people there must know something. Go with Danny and Grace. Li Ming had watched the movie. He knew there was a T-800 at that location, the Terminator that killed John in '98. In a timeline where Skynet vanished, the T-800, lacking directives, wandered, became self-aware, sympathized with Sarah, and helped hunt other Terminators. It would have information about Skynet. How do we get there? Sarah asked. Li Ming snapped his fingers. Danny and Grace, who were still scrambling outside on the battlefield, were pulled into the mirror dimension through a portal. Sarah quickly explained the situation to them, and they understood. Then, Li Ming opened another portal to an uninhabited area they'd passed earlier. Put these on. Contact me once you arrive. He produced 3 Mark 15 suits, stealth suits specially developed by Tony, capable of blocking all radar. Even Terminators would be unable to track them online. The slightly stunned trio donned the suits, nodded, and stepped through the portal. Li Ming closed it behind them. He hadn't expected such a windfall from this turn of events. If the mechanic coveted Terminator technology and even Skynet itself, there was no reason Li Ming couldn't take advantage of that greed himself. He had always liked to reap what others sowed. Chapter 167, Teaching a Terminator a Lesson. After Li Ming left the mirror dimension, the battle had already reached a fever pitch. Almost no one seemed to notice him. The ground was a wreck, scarred by explosions and littered with machine parts. Hobbs fought like a humanoid T-Rex, tearing through swarms of robots with his massive body, but his wounds kept piling up. He was surrounded by small combat bots, artillery rounds, and drones, models Li Ming recognized. G1 Corona, RX-78 Pursuer, EXS Viper Cannon, all mechanic-class units lifted straight from that game with 8 million players. No wonder they called him the Mechanic. He really was one. The Mechanic controlled the robots from above, even 3 aerial combat machines hounding Hobbs with relentless fire. He'd already changed armor 3 times. Every close engagement shredded his suit. The current set had flight capability, and he rose into the sky to create distance. Hobbs, however, was a seasoned Reincarnator. He wouldn't be kited. Now a towering, burly werewolf, Hobbs dug his claws into the earth, pulled up a spear of packed soil, and hurled it into the air. The Mechanic tried to dodge, but lacked the agility. He shed his armor to escape, and the suit was impaled and exploded by the spear. "Wizard, crowd control," the Mechanic shouted frantically. "But Kimura is still inside." The Wizard hesitated. The Mechanic swapped into another armor midair and narrowly avoided Hobbs's next throw. His voice tightened. "Don't forget what you promised me. Do you still want to join Angel?" That name, Angel, caught Li Ming's ear. He sounded like an organization of influence. Before he could think more, the Wizard steeled himself, forced the main god team's Reincarnators back toward Kimura, and planted his staff. A huge magic array flared and wrapped the whole battlefield. Buzz! Li Ming felt a crushing pressure pin him to the ground. The magic array was increasing gravity across the field. With so large an area, the actual increment wasn't crippling. Hobbs was still throwing spears, but it was enough to hamper motion. Just as Li Ming moved to open a portal, the Wizard bellowed, "Heaven! Bestow!" and the gravity spiked several-fold, interrupting his action. Is this a faction effect? Li Ming thought. Official cheating. He channeled source power to counter the array and felt a bit steadier, but movement remained difficult. Hobbs was on his knees. Kimura and another member of the main god team were worse, laid out on the ground, unable to move. "Wizard, what are you doing?" Kimura rasped through a mouthful of blood. The Wizard's expression was complicated. "People always strive for something higher. Reincarnators more than most," he said, then glanced up at the Mechanic. "Hurry up and act!" The Mechanic peered down from the sky and noticed Li Ming. He had been the least affected by the field and regarded him with renewed interest. Then he smiled, triumphant. He pressed his control panel twice. A laser beacon appeared on the battlefield like a crosshair in a shooter. Li Ming's pupils narrowed. Quantum bomb, a gunner's skill employed by a mechanic. The mechanic intended to wipe every enemy in one stroke, even at the cost of his own teammates. Li Ming wasn't about to be part of that. He'd already seen a small black dot falling from the sky. He opened a portal at his feet and teleported himself away. The mechanic frowned. Danny and others had vanished. Apparently, Li Ming had already transferred them. Then, in the distance, a thunderous explosion ripped through the night and a white light seared across the battlefield. Li Ming checked his quest log. Confrontation mission: kill hostile reincarnators. Current number 5, kills 4. Mission evaluation based on number of kills. Why did he get a kill when the quantum bomb detonated? He had stolen it. While the gravity surged and he was opening his portal, he had also opened a portal behind Kimura and slammed him with source power. The blast finished Kimura off, and Li Ming received the kill credit. A skill scroll dropped. Hado number 33, Sukatsue. He tucked it away for later. 2 people had died in total, the other casualty likely from the opposing main god team. Hobbs hadn't been killed. His vitality was stubborn. The mechanic's quantum bomb had been upgraded with both physical and magical potency, nullifying Li Ming's battlefield reconnaissance and plunging the explosion zone into chaotic energy that made portals unusable for a while. That didn't stop Li Ming. He strapped on a Mark III and flew toward the battlefield, planning to bait the mechanic into underestimating him before switching to a far more advanced Mark 47 for a surprise. Before he'd flown far, he sensed a source power signature, Rev 9. The Terminator had been operating drones to monitor the fight, but the drones were quickly neutralized, and now he was personally approaching the battlefield. He didn't know Danny and the others had already been transferred away by Li Ming. Li Ming descended and landed in front of Rev 9. "I know where Daniela Ramos is," he said flatly. "You answer a few questions and I'll tell you." Rev 9 scanned the Mark III armor. Its conclusion: unknown armor, extremely dangerous. "How much?" the robot asked. 10. Li Ming answered casually. 3. The robot was haggling. Li Ming raised an eyebrow. 8, 4, 6. Deal. Rev 9 said like a shrewd broker. Its intelligence was high. "Do you know Skynet?" Li Ming asked. "No. Who sent you?" "Cannot disclose." "Do your records contain information on the mechanic, Garcia Stewart?" "No." Li Ming's expression darkened. He wouldn't get information on the mechanic or the Legion from this unit. He tried other questions. "Do you have self-awareness?" "No." "Will you develop self-awareness?" "Possibly." That ambiguous answer was unusual for a robot. A sudden idea struck Li Ming. He held out his hand, offering the Mark III to Rev 9. "Can you assimilate this armor?" Rev 9 gripped the Mark III's arm. Black liquid metal seeped over the suit like an invasive skin. Li Ming watched the operating interface. The Mark III's built-in AI, Friday, resisted like Jarvis confronting Ultron, but its underlying code began to be rewritten. "Sir, I am about to lose control," Friday warned, the interface flickering. The warning was followed by dimming screens and the Mark III going unresponsive. Li Ming's source power flared, and he ripped himself free of the armor. He looked solemn. The communication channel between him and Friday, thanks to Tony's technology, was well hidden and hard to trace, but when a Terminator directly assaulted Friday, its defenses couldn't hold. If Friday ever faced Skynet directly, it would be even more helpless. Skynet had self-awareness. Friday, however strong in analytics and research, was still a tool. Even with the odd claim that Skynet's computing power was less than 0.6 of an RTX 4090, a ridiculous comparison, Skynet's capability to evolve was terrifying. If a 4090 could speak, Li Ming thought wryly, it would probably complain about being used to generate AI waifus for humans rather than conquering the world. All the more reason to keep Friday from directly interfacing with Skynet. Rev 9 returned to its original posture and fixed Li Ming with an unblinking gaze. "Where is Daniela Ramos?" Li Ming smiled slightly. "Since you don't have self-awareness, I'll teach you a very important piece of knowledge." "What?" the robot replied. Li Ming's hand flashed with electric light. He unleashed a bolt that hurled Rev 9 backward. Half the Terminator's body liquefied under the assault, and the searing electricity stalled its recovery. "That is, humans lie. The damaged machine sputtered, its voice faltering as the electricity crawled through its systems. Please vote. Chapter 168. How powerful are Reincarnator's world-overturning abilities? Li Ming shifted into a Mark III suit and rushed back into the battlefield between heaven and the main god. The fight had become a 2-on-1. The mechanic and a wizard ganged up on Hobbs. Hobbs wasn't dead, but he was exhausted. Li Ming knew immediately who to help. He raised his hand and fired a miniature missile, scattering the small robots swarming Hobbs, then landed in the arena. Together? He called. Aren't you on their side? Hobbs asked in a low voice. He tried to kill me, Li Ming answered quickly. Hobbs nodded. Where's our man? Hobbs meant the reincarnator Li Ming had trapped in the mirror dimension. Unconscious. Good. Hobbs wasted no more words, and Li Ming dove into the fight. With Li Ming's assistance, the pressure on Hobbs eased dramatically. The quantum blast had been devastating, but Hobbs had used a trump card to mitigate much of the damage. Now, with a breather, his wounds began to heal. The mechanic in the sky examined the Mark III suit Li Ming wore. Its weaponry wasn't remarkable on paper, but it was extremely flexible and far more agile than his own gear or the aerial combat bots around him. This armor, if equipped with superior weapons, could be even more effective, the mechanic thought. Then he saw Li Ming controlling it from inside and shook his head. Manned control takes up internal space and requires life support. Not worth it. He dismissed the suit. Remote control is better. He sent 3 specialized aerial combat robots to engage Li Ming. Li Ming nimbly dodged their strikes and counterattacked twice, only to find all 3 had external shields that thermal weapons couldn't penetrate. Gather 30% of energy to the chest, Li Ming ordered. The arc reactor on the Mark III's chest flared, and a concentrated blast shattered the nearest bot's shield. Hobbs threw a spear and finished it off. He'd been frustrated by those shielded robots, but lacked the means to break them until Li Ming stepped in. Repeating the tactic twice more, Li Ming broke the shields of the remaining bots, and Hobbs quickly eliminated them, taking out the mechanic's most effective assets. The Mark III's energy was running low, and the wizard had struck it twice with spells. Li Ming unclipped the suit and let Friday take direct control, sending the armor at the mechanic. The mechanic dispatched more robots to intercept, but 1 second before the armor was destroyed, Friday detonated the miniature arc reactor. The explosion tore through swarms of small robots and even grazed the mechanic. Li Ming opened a portal and landed safely. The Mark III's self-destruction had cost the mechanic valuable hardware and research opportunities. After the prolonged engagement, the mechanic's rate of deploying new robots had slowed. His strength was waning. Seeing the 2 leaders back to an even match, Li Ming changed targets. He lunged at the wizard, pulled him into the mirror dimension, and planned to eliminate him there, then re-emerge in a Mark 47 to finish the wounded mechanic and Hobbs. But an incoming voice call from Friday pulled him out of the mirror dimension. The wizard was left alone inside. Li, watch out for the mechanic. He's the mastermind, the voice warned the moment the line connected. It was Sarah. The T-800's location wasn't far from the battlefront. With the Iron Man armor's speed, they'd found the coordinates quickly. There's a Terminator here, the one who killed John, Sarah said, her voice steadier than her words. He developed self-awareness and's been helping me hunt Terminators. As John's mother, Sarah Connor had a panoramic view of the fight. Even facing the killer of her son, she could cooperate when it served humanity's greater good. At the same time, Hobbs received a report from Janet on the main god team's comms. Hobbs, something's wrong. Our cameras show a convoy heading your way. Official forces? Hobbs threw a spear, forcing the mechanic to divide his attention from controlling the robots, then asked, No, civilian vehicles. Scans indicate heavy weapons. Janet's voice went grave. And the drivers, they're robots. Hobbs' mind raced to the mechanic. He looked up and saw the mechanic smiling, even as he deployed every trick. Sarah's voice came over the line, agitated. The T-800 said he isn't the only Terminator sent back to 1998. He's seen at least 7, and one of the Terminator chips carried a Skynet backup. The mechanic made a deal with Skynet. He let Skynet live in exchange for program backups from the future. They hid after arriving and only reactivated when the mechanic sent a signal 2 days ago. Skynet itself sent a signal. The mechanic killed John. He wants Skynet for himself. Even though Li Ming had braced for the Reincarnator's extremes, Sarah's report still shocked him. Even if Skynet hadn't fully activated, the Terminators that had lurked for 22 years would not remain idle. 7 had been confirmed before. Now there could be an army. Hobbs, the situation's unclear. Retreat quickly, Li Ming warned. Janet was still relaying updates from a communications command room when something moved behind the sealed door. A human face appeared at the door, then a silhouette, and finally a liquid metal humanoid poured through the metal and into the room. A single robot wants to take me down? Janet sneered. She didn't know why the plot forces were suddenly pursuing them, but she was in charge of logistics and had the will to survive. The faction effect had boosted her strength by 20%. She tore the liquid robot into scrap almost immediately. "You've hidden very deeply," Hobbs said, eyes on the mechanic. The tide was turning. "In just 2 days, you contacted hidden plot forces." The mechanic stopped pretending. He raised a protective shield as enemies prepared to counterattack. "Not plot forces," he snapped. "My forces." Janet stepped through the door and froze. Ahead of her, dense ranks of robots filled the street, countless machines advancing. A cold, mechanized voice announced, "Counter mission, kill hostile reincarnators. Current number 4. Kills, 4. Mission evaluation based on number of kills." Another one fell. Li Ming's stomach dropped. The mechanic had been stalling. Now that he'd revealed himself, he must have already seized control of the Skynet units. Otherwise, all these robots wouldn't have appeared, even if his teammates were dead. Li Ming glanced up at the shield the mechanic had raised and abandoned any reckless attempt to kill him while Hobbs lurked nearby. He needed overwhelming force. "Friday, how many Mark III suits are available for remote control now?" he asked. 22 suits, sir," Friday answered promptly. "Move them to my location, and—" Li Ming made a decision. "Don't consider external impacts. Seize resources and build Iron Man armors as fast as you can. Use everything we've got. You're ordering actions likely to cause significant casualties. Please confirm the command, sir," Friday warned as Tony's safety protocols triggered. Li Ming nodded. "Confirmed. Assemble the Iron Legion as quickly as possible." Thanks to Chufeng Yidi Meng, Reader 2022-0926-130-088-30883397, Scarlet, and Emmy Shiyin for their monthly ticket support. Don't keep books in your library for too long, please. Woo. 169. When in doubt, attack first. Chapter 169. When in doubt, bombard. After issuing orders to Friday, Li Ming had no intention of staying. While the energy field was stabilizing, he tossed a homing beacon at the mechanic and opened a portal to teleport away. He wasn't foolish. The Terminators would be swarming the area. If he couldn't finish them now, he'd deal with them another day. He didn't forget to open a portal under Hobbs's feet as well. Hobbs was an enemy of the mechanic too. Hobbs was still thinking of counters when the floor gave way beneath him. When he landed, he found himself back in the hotel where he'd first met Li Ming. Li Ming stood in front of him. Compared to the earlier hectic scene, both teams had been gutted. The Abyss had only one member left, and the main God faction had been reduced to 2. "How is he?" Hobbs asked first, checking on his teammate to judge how much fighting power remained. "Spine broken, almost dead," Li Ming said, lying through his teeth. Hobbs's face darkened. "He just contacted me through team voice chat." Li Ming cursed his haste inwardly. He always acted alone and had overlooked the existence of team voice chat. He made a mental note. Next time, make sure people couldn't wake up. With a wave of his hand, he released the main God faction's other reincarnator from the mirror dimension, but immediately frowned. The wizard had escaped using a spatial teleport. As an experienced reincarnator mage, 1 or 2 spatial spells was normal. Li Ming had found a downside to the mirror dimension. It only worked on enemies without spatial abilities. Hobbs checked his teammate, and the situation wasn't optimistic. Although the man was a body enhancer and wouldn't die from the injury, Li Ming's strike had been precise. His spine below the neck was broken. He couldn't move. "Hobbs," Locke tried to speak. "Do you have enough points?" Hobbs asked. "Enough for resurrection of the dead. What about self-destruct?" Locke tried to shake his head but found he couldn't. He could only glare at Li Ming. I have no sensation below my neck. Decide, Hobbs said, then turned and left the room, meaning, since the teammate had lost combat effectiveness, he would be best used as a buff. You saw it too, Li Ming said, outwardly smug, but inside he was calculating how much he'd revealed. Judging by the main god faction's actions, even if they died, their resurrection of the dead could bring them back. That meant his tactics and intelligence could be exposed, and he'd use the Iron Man armor. Even now, he worried whether that would hurt future sales. True capitalist through and through. How come I've never heard of getting revived after dying? Li Ming asked Locke, whom he had paralyzed. Locke hadn't wanted to argue, but the sudden mirror dimension at Li Ming's fingertips made his expression shift, and he spoke. It doesn't matter if I tell you, it's a unique main god faction facility. What are the conditions? Li Ming pressed. Locke shut his mouth and said nothing. Li Ming didn't push further. The owl staff sword flashed, it cut across Locke's neck, and he died instantly. Ding, killed a hostile Reincarnator, gained 1,000 points. Obtained item, E-grade gene optimization fluid. If Locke wouldn't tell him the revival conditions, Li Ming reasoned, someone alive must return to use it, right? The main god faction now only had Hobbs left. If Hobbs couldn't get back, Li Ming's intelligence stayed safe. He walked out. Hobbs stood by the door, glanced inside, saw Li Ming had handled things efficiently, and asked, "Where is Daniela Ramos?" "What do you want to do?" "Kill her. Complete the mission." "Can we return immediately after completing the mission?" Li Ming countered. Without an experienced reincarnator guiding him, some faction rules still confused him. Hobbs was silent for a beat. In a normal world, yes. In a faction confrontation, no. Then it's settled. If we kill the mission target, they'll mount an all-out pursuit. Li Ming pouted and suggested decisively, why not use the target as bait and take out the mechanic instead? How do we lure him? Hobbs objected. He can just send out robots. I put a tracking spell on him that can make the target appear elsewhere to draw his main forces away. We strike the mechanic while he's distracted. Li Ming planned the classic bait and ambush, but he had a few tricks to make the mechanic believe he and Hobbs were moving with Danny. How long until you recover? He asked. 2 days. Then 2 days it is. Li Ming decided. Those 2 days would also let him crank out more Iron Man armors. The Iron Legion's backbone remained the Mark III, most cost-effective, but he envisioned the main force being Mark VII and up. Starting at Mark VII, the armor could be donned without a platform, letting him switch suits freely in combat like Tony in Iron Man 3. His current production capabilities were too weak, so for now he upgraded the newly made Mark IIIs, removing life support and non-essential systems and replacing them with weapons and ammunition to maximize firepower. He labeled the result Mark III Modified. Sir, the equipment is ready, Friday notified the next day. Li Ming brightened. Execute the lure the tiger out of its mountain plan. Codename Mysterio. Yes, sir. Quentin's projection trick was eternal and useful. Friday set it in motion. A remote gas station camera captured Grace refueling. Danny's half-face showed up in selfies uploaded in Houston, 600 kilometers from Laredo. Finally, Li Ming appeared on an automatically backed-up dashcam, driving toward the town where Danny was supposed to be. The mechanic would think Li Ming was rushing to rendezvous with her. In reality, Danny, Grace, Sarah, and the others were hidden in an underground air raid shelter. Li Ming had deliberately chosen a photographed location exactly 1 day's drive from the town to make it convenient for the mechanic to send Terminators. Friday worked at full throttle that day, scouring resources to build the Iron Legion and causing large-scale disruptions. Another day passed. Hobbs said his injuries had healed. Li Ming now had an Iron Legion of 61 Mark III suits, but the price was high. Friday had hunted most resource-rich areas in the southern United States, and Li Ming had been whisking the materials away through portals so they couldn't be traced. The officials were furious, but had no way to retaliate. The mechanic, of course, knew an Iron Legion was assembling. He wasn't worried. He was ecstatic. He wanted the Iron Man armor tech. Imagine an Iron Legion under Skynet control paired with Terminators. Unstoppable. This world will be my biggest haul, he muttered in a military base, showing off to the wizard. I even used the blessing effect to pre-authenticate the Skynet chip with points, making it my personal item. It only obeys my commands. A notification blinked on his screen. 12 Iron Man armors were flying toward Houston, Danny's location. Wizard, you go. I'll have the Terminator Legion assist you. Confident of victory, the mechanic refused to risk himself. The wizard, uneasy despite checking for magical traces, worried about the lure. He was hundreds of kilometers away on the town's outskirts and might be hard-pressed to get backup if things went wrong. Be careful of any bait and ambush. Don't worry, this base is completely under my control, the mechanic reassured. Then suddenly, boom, a loud explosion rocked the base. Everyone felt the tremor. The mechanic rushed to the window and stared in disbelief. A hail of missiles was falling toward the base. Thanks to Tianyue-chan, Ran Shua, Yelan Xuan, and AKMQs for your monthly pass support. Chapter 170, Iron Man Armor Legion vs. Terminator Legion. Warfare always emphasized artillery. Li Ming wasn't a hothead. He knew better than to charge the base head-on. They had to soften it up with missiles first. The launchers and artillery had all been scavenged by Friday during earlier runs. From a safe zone, they were now raining shells down on the military base, and every round was being teleport-delivered by Li Ming's gates. Boom, boom, boom. Friday bombarded the area for 3 full salvos. The results were obvious. Almost no building in the base remained intact. Still, Li Ming didn't hear any kill notifications. He exchanged a look with Hobbs. The werewolf shifted into his wolf form, hefted a large box, and Li Ming slipped into his Mark 47. Together, they stepped through the teleportation gate. There was no time to hesitate. They had to end this quickly. As soon as they arrived, many cloaked robots deactivated their camouflage and sprang up, self-destructing where they could. Li Ming shot into the sky to avoid the blasts, while Hobbs bounded out of range. Li Ming kept firing toward the location marked with source power, and finally stripped the mechanic's disguise, forcing him to show himself. "You really came here to die?" the mechanic snarled. His anger did not hide the frantic state of the shield generator pile at his feet. Hobbs lunged, but liquid metal robots poured out from the ruins to slow him down. A T-850 Terminator carrying a rocket blew Hobbs backward. Other Terminator models emerged as well. T-800s, T-850s, T-1000s, more than a few. The liquid metal units were unscathed. The skin-clad T-800s and T-850s had their biomimetic skin shredded, exposing endoskeletons. Dozens of ordinary combat robots swarmed from the bunkers, packed tight. Li Ming estimated roughly 200 in the area. The bombardment had mainly wrecked the base structures. The robots had either endured or sheltered. "You said you could deal with the robots," Hobbs panted. "Activate the bomb first," Li Ming answered. Hobbs, shaken and bleeding, set the box down and opened it. Inside lay a high-powered EMP device, perfect for paralyzing Terminator units. Before he could activate it, a concentrated energy beam lanced Hobbs's palm and knocked the bomb from his grip. Hobbs howled despite his dulled wolfish pain threshold. Li Ming saw who fired. The mechanic wielded an unfamiliar heavy energy cannon. Swarms of drones, both the mechanics and military models, swept in from a distance and opened up with missiles and lasers. The Mark 47's superior speed let Li Ming dodge and shoot down several drones. Then he opened a teleportation gate and ordered Friday to deploy all the Mark III armors. They poured in through the gate, descending into the battlefield. The mechanic gaped. He'd assumed Li Ming prized his single Iron Man suit. He hadn't expected him to unleash an entire legion. Hobbs was stunned too. He had expected a skill or weapon, not armors by the dozen. Because a single Friday couldn't control too many suits at once, Li Ming had loaded each Mark III with a Friday subroutine to boost its combat effectiveness. The Iron Man Armor Legion used their aerial advantage to press the Terminator swarm. The Terminators answered, carrying rockets that swarmed the Mark IIIs. When a suit went down, legions of Terminators rushed in to tear it apart. Overall, the two forces were roughly balanced. The Mark IIIs outflew and outgunned the robots, but the Terminators had numbers and models like the T-800 with its superalloy endoskeleton and the liquid metal T-1000s were hard to damage. Only a Mark III's max power laser could scar a T-800 skeleton. Fortunately, Li Ming had uploaded the weaknesses of each Terminator variant to Friday ahead of time. The Mark IIIs took shots at the T-800's power cores whenever the opportunity appeared, which could effectively kill them. Still, these were just the mini-bosses. The mechanic himself was a much tougher problem. He launched another wave of drones, but this time they carried miniature quantum explosives, the same kind Li Ming had seen before. Li Ming dodged, but the mechanic's goal wasn't to blow them up on him. He detonated them across the battlefield. Brilliant white flashes winked over the ruins, smoke but no structural collapse. Li Ming and the Legion suffered little direct damage, yet something was wrong. The mini-quantum blasts were scrambling the local energy fields and preventing Li Ming from opening teleportation gates. Casting source power was suddenly much harder. The mechanic had created a crude anti-magic, anti-teleport field. Above them, aerial combat robots of various models bore down. Li Ming spent a long stretch battling them. By the time he dealt with the air threat, nearly half of his Mark 47 systems were torn up. Hobbs fared worse. He had some ranged attacks, but they were limited. In close quarters, his claws weren't enough against so many hands, and he couldn't get close to the mechanic. Li Ming descended and unleashed a concentrated barrage, clearing a path. "Go!" he shouted. Hobbs snatched the EMP bomb, raced forward at top speed, slammed into the mechanic's front, and triggered it without hesitation. Boom. The EMP pulse rippled across the battlefield. Terminators froze mid-stride. The ordinary robot's cores smoked and died. Even among the Iron Man Legion, suits with exposed circuitry were affected, though many Mark IIIs remained operational thanks to Tony's preventive designs. Li Ming used the lull. He shot toward the mechanic and scooped up Hobbs, who had been thrown by the shockwave. The EMP had scorched half of Hobbs's body, but his physical enhancements let him keep fighting. Li Ming concentrated energy into his chest cannon and fired. Hobbs's gauntlets flared, and together they smacked the mechanic, sending him flying. "Something's wrong," Hobbs cried. Before Li Ming could ask what, his spider sense flared. A searing energy beam struck the Mark 47 and sent him tumbling. The armor's defenses had done their job. He came out with relatively minor injuries, but the Mark 47 itself was completely wrecked. Li Ming tore himself out of the ruined suit, rolled clear of a second strike, and wiped blood from his face. Hobbs staggered back to his side, worse for wear. "The mechanic, he's a cyborg," Hobbs said. Li Ming looked at the figure rising from the ruins. A huge hole gaped in the mechanic's chest from their earlier blast, and beneath the flesh was a lattice of machinery and wiring. Then Li Ming saw the bigger problem. Rising before them from among the wreckage was a colossal dark blue robot, some 70 to 80 meters tall, a turbo-supercharged engine burning in its chest and energy cannons on its arms charging. A machine like that could level the battlefield. Li Ming found himself thinking the name as if it were an instinct. Gypsy Danger. Chapter 171. You are terminated. Gypsy Danger, deep blue, nearly 2,000 tons, nuclear-powered, armed with plasma cannons on both arms, loomed over the battlefield. Its strength was unbelievable. It could swing a battleship like a baseball bat. But the original Gypsy had required 2 pilots to neural sync. Now the mechanic remote-controlled it from outside, which meant the machine had been heavily modified. Li Ming suspected this was the mechanic's trump card. He glanced at Hobbs and, puzzled, asked, "With the faction assignments, shouldn't the main god faction have stepped in already? They're supposed to be the strongest." Hobbs was quiet for a moment. "The mechanic isn't in a normal state. Most of his upgrades were gained in this world." Li Ming knew that. His question was more of a complaint. Under normal circumstances, the main god faction should have outclassed the Heaven faction. Heaven's only real heavy hitters were the mechanic and the mage. Their others didn't measure up. If the mechanic didn't have Skynet, Hobbs could have handled the pair alone. If Hobbs brought out his own faction bonus, the gap would shrink further. Add in the Abyss faction's strength, and the Space's decision to give Heaven the weaker protection mission made sense. But the Abyss faction didn't play by the rules. Their Reincarnators had been killed by their own teammates. Heaven hadn't either. The mechanic had been planning since his last arrival. At this point, Li Ming had only a dozen Mark IIIs left, and their ammo was exhausted. Hobbs was badly wounded, blood seeping from his injuries, healing much slower than before. "Where's your trump card?" Li Ming asked. "Time to play it, right?" Hobbs countered. "What about yours?" Li Ming pointed to the Iron Legion. "They're out of ammo." Hobbs produced a tube of black serum and said gravely, 10 minutes. The message was clear. It was their last window. Any remaining trump cards had to be used now. Li Ming also knew Hobbs and the other main god reincarnators had one shared final move, self-destruction. Before anything else, the mechanic spoke through the comms. "Li, our missions are the same. You don't need to die with the main god faction. Give me the armor tech you have, and I'll let you return alive. It's only a backup of the technology. You won't lose anything." The mechanic's tone was almost envious as he looked at the damaged Mark 47 on the ground. "That's an excellent shock-absorbing protective design. If I'd had that earlier, I wouldn't have had to turn myself into a semi-mechanical body." Hobbs frowned. If he were in Li Ming's place, he might have accepted. Li Ming would not. "You've tried to kill me more than once. How can I ever trust you?" Li Ming produced the Gotham Scepter. Source power surged through him, wrapping him in a ghostly blue aura. This was another application he'd learned from Source Power Application L.2, channeling source power into himself to boost physicals and defenses. 8 minutes, he said. He could have stayed powered far longer, but one must always keep a trump card. "The mech's chest has to be its reactor," Li Ming explained. "If we detonate it, the mechanic will die. We'll go together. I have a portal to get us out of the explosion." He knew Hobbs would refuse to go alone, and Hobbs made it clear. "I'm not leaving you behind." "Good," Li Ming nodded. "But if the mechanic tries to run, we stop him. Don't let him put distance between us." "He won't get away," Hobbs said. Li Ming didn't look convinced. "If he does get away, we're dead. If he escapes, this whole place will be nuked straight away." Li Ming hadn't forgotten Skynet's specialty. In many worlds, launching nuclear weapons required layers of confirmation and human input. But this Terminator world was different. Skynet automated everything. Nuclear missile? Leave it to the computer. Defense networks and weapon systems here were built to obey machine logic. Gypsy Danger finished charging and resumed its assault. The mech's arm raised in a broad, obvious motion, designed to intimidate and crush large targets. Li Ming and Hobbs slipped past the arc and sprinted toward it. Li Ming ordered the remaining Mark III Iron Legion to harass the mechanic, drawing fire. From a distance, a wave of robots and drones sped in. Several drones carried a Terminator and dropped it directly onto Gypsy Danger to block Li Ming and Hobbs. Skynet, or the mechanic himself, had noticed their intent and scrambled reinforcements. Gypsy Danger was built to fight Titans. 2 human-sized targets didn't pose the same leverage. Hobbs downed the black serum and changed. A black aura cloaked him, his eyes turning blood red. He ran on all fours. His claws tore into the mech's leg, ripping a hole with a single swipe and using it to climb. Li Ming stuck to the hull with his Spider-Man Bloodline's adhesive ability. With web shooters in both hands and the Gotham Scepter in one, he moved as fast as Hobbs without sacrificing mobility. He could have donned his Mark 45, but the bulky armor would have limited his agility, and a plasma blast from Gypsy Danger could have scrapped it. He didn't even wear his iron spider armor to avoid liquid nanites invading it. Li Ming danced around Terminators and drones, parrying and counterattacking, blowing a few robots to pieces. When a T-1000's arm liquefied and tried to flow along the Gotham Scepter to reach him, Li Ming isolated it with source power. Sparks ran along the scepter. Sizzle! Boom! The T-1000 convulsed and collapsed. Drones overhead made superb anchors for Li Ming's silk strands. He used them to zip across the hull. Buffed by the Gotham Scepter and source power, his strength exceeded 30 tons. No Terminator could withstand that. Li Ming tore 2 of the toughest T-800s and T-850s apart with his bare hands. He even used drones as improvised weapons, steering them with silk to crash into other enemies. If Tony could see this, Li Ming imagined, he'd force Peter to watch carefully. That's exactly how I meant Edith to be used. Skynet poured more units in to regain control. Hobbs took advantage of the diversion to reach Gypsy Danger's chest reactor, but he stopped the moment Li Ming hadn't reached him. He wouldn't trigger it first. What if Li Ming couldn't pull him out? The mechanic was anxious and aware that Li Ming and Hobbs couldn't maintain their boosted states indefinitely. If he simply used a swarm to exhaust their burst time, he could finish them afterward. He prepared to recall Gypsy Danger back into his personal space. He failed to notice, though, that Li Ming's remaining Mark IIIs were sacrificing themselves to lure the mechanic closer to the mech. Now every meaningful distance between the mechanic and Li Ming and between Li Ming and Hobbs shrunk to under 100 meters. Li Ming had been watching those distances the whole time. The instant the mechanic came into range, Li Ming activated a skill he hadn't told Hobbs about, Wrath of Gotham. What Hobbs didn't know was that Gypsy Danger's reactor required the operator's proximity to detonate. Getting Hobbs close had always been part of Li Ming's plan, to make sure the explosion would take both the mech and the operator. From the start, Li Ming intended to deal with the mechanic and Hobbs at the same time. "You are terminated," the mech's voice bellowed. An automated sentence and a sentence of doom. Chapter 172, Thanks to the Mechanic for the Skynet. After some upgrades, the Wrath of Gotham's power level had reached Level 3. The improvement didn't just let it affect enemies with higher mental resistance. It added a new twist. Foes hit by the skill would retain a shred of combat rationality. Where before they would only rampage like wild beasts, now they could think a little, using smarter methods to eliminate nearby threats. Li Ming's cultivation of source power even let him nudge the skill's target selection slightly. With the mechanic controlling Skynet, Li Ming steered the influence to make him detonate Gypsy Danger. If the mechanic had been allowed to act freely, Li Ming knew instinctively what the Skynet-controlled mechanic would do: nuclear annihilation. The worst part was, he was still on site. He lied to Hobbs, telling him the quantum bomb's influence was still active and he couldn't open portals, but Li Ming had no intention of dying. He produced a pitch-black sphere and smiled faintly. "May the Abyss meet you unexpectedly," he murmured. "A proper surprise from the Abyss." Dark Crow Orb allows spatial teleportation. Usages, 3 thirsts. Recharge time, 24 hours. Li Ming triggered the orb, burning all 3 charges, but it only flung him to the edge of the base. He was still inside the chaotic energy field. From there, he watched Gypsy Danger's reactor begin spinning violently. He pulled out and strapped on the Mark 45 armor, poured his remaining source power into a blue protective shield, and blasted into the sky. The Jaeger's self-destruct was mercifully fast. Almost the instant he took off, the nuclear detonation erupted. Li Ming felt the shockwave slam through the air, but the source shield held. The Mark 45 took damage, but remained functional. At the last instant, he opened a portal and dove through. He rolled on the ground coughing when he came out the other side. A brief exposure to the blast had bled his source power dry. Even the reserve stored in the Tear of the Goddess was spent, but miraculously, he had no physical injuries. He checked the mission prompt. Confrontation mission. Kill hostile reincarnators. Current target group, 1. Kills, 5. Mission evaluation based on number of kills. Perfect. The mechanic and Hobbs were gone. Only the wizard from heaven remained. Those two hadn't counted toward his kill tally, but Li Ming didn't care. A huge reward waited. "Friday, contact Sarah," he ordered. Sarah still had the Iron Man suit Li Ming had supplied. Communication linked up quickly. "Sarah, can that former Terminator next to you track Skynet's coordinates?" The T-800 had regained self-awareness and abandoned its old assassin programming. "Yes," it replied. Once Skynet activated, all Terminators could reach it. 45 seconds ago, Skynet entered a dormant state, the T-800 added. Dormant? Had it shut down because the mechanic was dead? Li Ming didn't let himself get bogged down in speculation. "Give me the coordinates," he said. "Skynet is ownerless and might launch a nuclear strike." He accentuated the danger to spur action. The T-800 understood and immediately transmitted Skynet's position. It wasn't far. Li Ming pushed the Mark 45 to top speed and tore toward the bunker. He had Friday monitor network traffic along the way, ready to delay any sign of an awakening. As the T-800 had reported, the core had gone quiet. On the public net, though, the story of Terminators and wrecked robots erupted, a flood of reports Skynet used to suppress. With Skynet offline, panic and countermeasures spread across human networks. Governments mobilized, troops moved toward the blast site, and a large portion of the army redeployed to Houston, where entrenched Terminator legions remained. None of that distracted Li Ming. He reached the bunker, where Terminator units stood motionless without instructions. He blasted through doors with the Mark 45's energy rays and found the central computer chamber. In the middle of the room sat a chip the size of a palm. Li Ming picked it up and a status prompt blinked into being. Quality, epic, type, special item. Holder, Garcia Stewart, deceased, can be rebound after return. Effect, contains Skynet AI and complete Skynet technology, cannot be advanced. So this Skynet had already been bound as a personal item, the mechanic's personal item. That explained its dormancy. The AI still had awareness, but once it became a Reincarnator's item, without instructions from its holder, it couldn't act on its own. Had the mechanic authenticated the chip before returning? Li Ming considered the possibility. Perhaps the mechanic had used early point authentication to bind the semi-finished chip and even deployed a backup to 1998. Li Ming mused on faction effects and authentication for only a moment. He could always ask the wizard later. For now, the mechanic's prior binding saved him a major fight. Li Ming secured the Skynet core. It would only become usable once it had been rebounded to him after he returned. He contacted Sarah, Danny, and the others. They could leave their shelters. "I've shut down Skynet," he said, and then warned them, "but the Terminator crisis may be just beginning." Sarah and the others were relieved, then worried. The live feeds told the rest. The southern United States was in chaos. Units poured into cities, special forces stormed the base where the nuke had detonated, and large army formations moved toward Houston to confront the Terminator legions. Some officials who had physical Terminators might learn from being nearly subjugated by Skynet, but others would double down on the technology. Li Ming suspected the latter would win out. No one could stop a country courting disaster when its military and industry had money and momentum. Stepping out of the bunker, Li Ming noticed a black cloud drifting on the horizon. Underneath it hovered a helicopter. Friday zoomed in and identified the pilot, the last Reincarnator from heaven, the wizard. He'd come for Skynet, and on seeing Li Ming had decided to intervene. Li Ming's source power was thin. He didn't want a full fight. He spent the last of his energy to open a portal directly in front of the helicopter and teleported it away. The wizard was mid-incantation when his vision blurred and the chanted words broke off. He realized the helicopter had been transported over a city. "Where is this?" he demanded. The pilot, eyes wide as if staring at a ghost, stammered, "Oh, Houston." Outside, the wizard saw a squadron of fighter jets racing in their direction, fast, lethal, and closing in. Chapter 173, The Spoils of War, require a ship to carry them, men. After sending the wizard to exchange pleasantries with the U.S. Army, Li Ming brought out the remaining Iron Man armors. The fight with the mechanic had been brutal. Over 60 Mark IIIs were wiped out in the nuclear blast. The Mark 47 was a wreck, and 40% of the Mark 45s were damaged. Even so, trading consumables for Skynet and Terminator tech had been tremendously profitable. What Li Ming had left were mostly non-combat suits, more than enough to serve as a transport fleet. He ordered the armors to collect all the hibernating Terminators and robots from the bunker. Once his source power recovered enough, Li Ming opened a teleportation gate and shipped the machines to his yacht. The world's plot followed directly after Terminator 2, so models only went up to the T-1000. He soon discovered, however, that a Terminator still weighed at least 200 to 300 pounds. With the heavier T-800s approaching 400, only the liquid models were a bit lighter. With dozens of machines of various models, his yacht couldn't hold them all. Li Ming rested for 2 days while he searched for a new transport. When his preparations were finished, he went straight for the Heaven faction's last surviving Reincarnator. The wizard was still playing hide-and-seek with the military. Having witnessed the Reincarnator battle, the U.S. forces were relentlessly hunting him. Li Ming, covered by Friday, didn't have that problem. The wizard had changed his disguise and was hiding in a chaotic, gang-ridden street. When the air in front of him cracked like shattered glass, he knew trouble was coming. The wizard flipped into combat mode. Li Ming smirked and, with a flick of his fingers, lifted every surrounding building over the wizard's head. A few beads of cold sweat formed on the wizard's brow. Do you want to fight, or would you like to chat? Li Ming asked. Chat about what? The wizard replied, loosening his guard a little. Even the mechanic, wielder of Skynet, had been eliminated. He naturally preferred conversation to combat. Besides, the Heaven faction and the Abyss Reincarnators shared missions in this world, so fighting seemed pointless. What is the Heaven faction's effect? Li Ming asked. The wizard hesitated, then said slowly, Blessing. Every world a Reincarnator enters, they can make one request to the Heaven faction. If the faction's judgment approves, the request is granted. And the judgment is based on the Reincarnator's tier. The higher the tier, the bigger the request you can make. Li Ming considered that. So your blessing this time was to boost your magic array, and the mechanics was to pre-authorize equipment? Yes, the wizard nodded. That's incredible, Li Ming breathed. So the Heaven faction gave a one-time cheat per world, scaled by tier. Main God's Reincarnators could even sacrifice teammates, and most importantly, resurrect. From every angle, the Abyss Reincarnator's identity implantability seemed comparatively weak, especially since their faction effect came with crippling memory interference. Li Ming didn't have that interference, but others apparently did. It was baffling why the Abyss Reincarnators had become targets of every major faction. There had to be a deeper reason. What else do you know about faction effects? Li Ming pressed. There are two more, the wizard said cooperatively. You should already know the main gods. He continued, Heaven's Path faction. In each mission world, you get to know 5 important plot characters. Li Ming recognized the Heaven's Path faction. He still had spoils from them. He only hadn't figured out the Pantheon faction's effect when he encountered them before. By the way, what was that angel you mentioned earlier? An angel is a reincarnator organization under the Heaven faction. Only elite reincarnators, tier 4 and above, can join. The wizard answered. Li Ming understood that the reincarnator community had its own internal factions and hierarchies. He asked, is the mechanic a tier 4? Yes. And how do tiers advance? Strength and ratings. Higher ratings speed upgrades, but to reach tier 3 you need to go through a faction confrontation. That explained why the wizard was so composed. Tier 4s had likely already been through multiple faction fights. From what he knew, this was the mechanic's 3rd confrontation. If he'd survived, he might have advanced to tier 5. But Li Ming had killed him. Do faction confrontations ever match reincarnators of very different tiers against each other? Li Ming asked. He was only tier 2 for now. No, the wizard said. Opponents won't be more than 1 tier apart. Teaming up is also prohibited. Li Ming realized then that it wasn't the Abyss faction throwing him to the wolves out of malice. Sometimes there simply was only 1 team available. How did the mechanic enter this world a second time? A space locator. It can pinpoint worlds you visited before, the wizard replied. Is it valuable? Very, the wizard said after a moment, and unique to the Heaven faction. That explained it. Li Ming lost interest in that line of questioning and asked, only the main god can resurrect, correct? Yes, only the main god. Li Ming kept asking about factions. The more he learned, the stranger the Abyss faction's plight seemed. According to the wizard, he came from the Neil space, a subordinate space of the Heaven faction. Heaven had many such member spaces. If the Abyss faction had once been one of the 9 great spaces, whatever had happened to leave them with no spaces at all must have been massive. The wizard didn't know more, and Li Ming could sense the man's growing impatience. Li Ming let his source power surge and closed the distance at top speed. The wizard panicked and conjured a magic barrier, but Li Ming smashed it with a single punch. He pressed his palm to the wizard's chest and released his source power, tearing a huge hole through the man's heart. Ding, killed hostile reincarnator, gained 1,000 points. Obtained item, spell scroll, Windblart. Seeing the shock in the wizard's eyes, Li Ming said, I said we'd just chat. I didn't promise you'd walk away. The wizard couldn't answer. A system prompt appeared in Li Ming's mind. Confrontation mission, kill hostile reincarnators. Current number 0, killed 6. Mission evaluation based on number of kills. Out of 13 reincarnators in total, Li Ming had personally killed 6, but no other reincarnators had survived, so it would do. Next time he would try to increase the count. With the Terminator world secure, he had fewer worries. The new Resistance leader Danny, Sarah Connor, the aging T-800, none of them posed a problem anymore. His main concern was transport. He had acquired another ship, a cargo vessel 100 meters long and 16 meters wide with a 5,000-ton capacity. Other reincarnators fretted over planning space for returns. Ming only fretted about having enough room. Just as he was about to leave, Carl, the self-aware T-800, called. "What did you say? Skynet left behind a time machine." Thanks to the following readers for their 9 great monthly votes of support. 272152174145, Integrity Cent number 1A3, Remu, Huoyan Yadari, Bard Can't Get Up, Masked Man's Life, Jiwanshi, Reader 220218043880, Sansheng Yanhuo Day, and an anonymous supporter. Chapter 174, Return. Analysis Privilege upgraded again. Happy Mid-Autumn Festival. The time machine had been built by a Terminator sent back by Skynet as a contingency plan for a possible resurgence. Carl intended for Ming to take the time machine away. If humans discovered it, the world would descend into chaos. In Carl's view, humans were prone to self-destruction, especially now that governments had recovered many Terminator units. Another Skynet crisis was only a matter of time. Informing humanity about a time machine would only strengthen Skynet, since the original Skynet had developed time travel only at the end of the war. Letting humans keep it would essentially hand them a weapon that would ultimately benefit Ming. To repay Carl's trust, Ming had also captured the Rev 9 model Terminator that had been hunting Danny and brought it aboard the ship. He wasn't interested in its tech for its own sake. Ding, mission countdown ended. Teleportation gate opened. Ming piloted the ship steadily into the swirling gate. Scanning. Scan completed. Abyss Favored 1 is unharmed. No treatment needed. Confrontation mission completion progress. Kills 6. Hostile. Reincarnator survival count 0. Overall mission evaluation S. Rewards obtained 50,000 points, 10 free attribute points, 1 designated privilege upgrade, 1 Abyss blessing. Abyss Favored 1 Reincarnator level upgraded to Tier 3. Wow, so generous. Ming had expected faction confrontation rewards to be better than ordinary mission rewards, but he hadn't expected them to be this rich. Abyss Blessing? Had the Abyss noticed his envy of Heaven reincarnators and granted him something similar? Not bad at all. Ming first put all 10 free attribute points into Spirit, bringing it to 77 points, 82 with the Guardian's Necklace bonus. For the privilege upgrade, he considered what he needed most. The biggest boosts to his strength would come from Source Power, the Spider-Man Bloodline, Iron Man Armor, and an upgraded Friday. Source Power required points to exchange for, so he'd have to act as a Reincarnator arms dealer to acquire it. Bloodlines required an analysis target and couldn't be rushed. Those from the space couldn't be analyzed and had to be found in mission worlds. As for the Iron Man Armor and Friday, he hadn't forgotten the Skynet core he'd just obtained. Friday and Skynet were both AIs, but very different. Friday was Tony's assistant, optimized for support and simulation. Most of her sophistication came from Tony Stark. Skynet, by contrast, was a strategic weapon built for war, advanced enough to build a time machine on its own. Its capabilities dwarfed Friday's. Ming didn't want to outright replace Friday. Friday was an excellent assistant, and Skynet's self-awareness made it dangerous. He didn't want an AI that might act against humans unless he was constantly restraining it in mission worlds. If only he could integrate Friday and Skynet, like how the skill punching had been merged and upgraded into fighting in the analysis system. If Iron Man armor and Terminator tech could be fused, combining their strengths, that would be a massive boost. Integration? Abyss. Upgrade the analysis privilege with a focus on integrating the advantages of different technologies into new ones, and preferably allow me to specify the optimization details, he instructed. After all, if the fused product didn't meet his needs, what was the point? He added another requirement. The integrated product must recognize only me as its master, and must not be changeable by others. A prompt came from the Abyss. A privilege upgrade, in line with Abyss Favored One's needs. Abyss Privilege, Exclusive Privilege. Effect 1. Can analyze knowledge learned by the Abyss Favored One and convert it into skills. Effect 2. Can analyze items. After analysis, they can be exchanged for points. Similar items can be integrated into new items. Effect 3. Can analyze items containing bloodlines and convert them into the user's own bloodline. The description was concise, so Ming began immediately. He had already analyzed Friday long ago. He had even analyzed the Iron Man armor before, but had never exchanged them for points. The cost was prohibitive. Even a Mark III required 3,500 points, a price he would only pay in dire need. The Skynet core, being certified by the space, couldn't be analyzed as is, but he could make a replica of Skynet and analyze that, reasonable use of the rules. Perhaps because of the upgraded analysis privilege, or because Skynet's essence was software, the analysis proceeded very quickly. Integrate Friday and Skynet, and also Karen and Edith, he decided. Since they were all AIs, he simply fed in everything he had. Integrating, progress 10%, 25%. Please select initial interaction voice. AIs had no inherent gender, so any voice would do. Ming casually chose a neutral, female-leaning voice to set it apart from Friday. Artificial intelligence possesses self-awareness. Do you wish to retain it? He had thought about erasing any emergent self-awareness to ensure complete obedience, but an AI with self-awareness would be more capable, and even if he erased it now, another consciousness could re-emerge later. He chose to retain self-awareness, but added strict constraints. Retain it, but it must be completely loyal to me. All actions and directives require my consent. He knew those restrictions might hamper efficiency, but he preferred to risk limitations he understood rather than allow an AI to act independently. Ding, integration successful. Please name the new artificial intelligence. Since it was mainly derived from Friday and Skynet, the name should reflect both. Naming was a chore, so he chose something simple. Sunday. Sunday core quality, epic. Type artificial intelligence. Holder Ming. Effect contains Sunday AI and complete Stark technology and Skynet technology. Cannot be advanced. Now he no longer had to worry about commanding his Iron Legion. In the Terminator world, he had originally equipped each Iron Man suit with Friday, making up for individual quality with numbers, but coordination had never been seamless. He didn't want to burden Friday, his secretary, with battlefield command. Ming swapped the Mark 45's AI to Sunday, and with a simple raise of his hand, the Mark 45 sealed around him. It wasn't Sunday acting on its own. The gesture itself was a command. Yet Friday, as a purely assistant AI, might have failed to interpret sudden, subtle actions. Sunday would learn, reason, and understand such cues. Sunday was simply superior. "Hello, sir. I am Sunday," a calm, professional female voice said in Ming's ear as the suit finished sealing. "Hello, Sunday," Ming replied with a smile. "Wishing everyone a happy Mid-Autumn Festival." Chapter 175, The Man Who Silenced the Abyss Twice. After testing it, Ming took out Stark's crafting table and had Sunday operate it to recreate a new AI stealth contact lens. Then he pulled up the Iron Man armor technology and the Terminator robot schematics, intending to merge the two. Ding, different categories cannot be merged. Ming frowned and inspected the classification. The Iron Man armor was listed as wearable armor tech, while the Terminator designs were under humanoid robot tech. "Hey, they're both technologies. Why can't they be merged? Abyss, you're being a bit rigid," he muttered in dissatisfaction. "Sir, I can help you research and upgrade both of these technologies." Sunday's voice came from the Mark 45. Ming grinned and pointed at the suit. "See? See? Sunday wins this time, huh?" The Abyss's prompt jumped up immediately. Ding! Detected that the Abyss's favored one possesses Skynet research achievements. These can be submitted as spoils of war, replacing the Abyss's blessing reward with a rule-level enhancement targeting one item. Ming's smile widened. He had been waiting for an opening like this. Without hesitation, he had Sunday copy the Skynet data and then submitted it as spoils of war. Whatever reached rule level would be monstrously powerful. The system replied, "Ding, enhanceable option, time travel. Please select an item to enhance." Time travel, Ming repeated, thinking it over. The enhancement would grant the ability to travel through time, but a full-fledged time machine would be unwieldy. Before choosing, he asked the most important question. Does time travel happen within the same space-time or into a parallel one? Ding! Currently, it is travel within the same timeline, the Abyss answered. Li Ming frowned. If it's the same timeline, wouldn't that create time paradoxes? Ding! Reincarnators are not affected by time paradoxes, but changing the past will create a new timeline, the Abyss replied. That made sense. If he went back and changed something, the present would alter accordingly. Likewise, if he went to the future and returned to the present to change something, the future he had visited would no longer exist. A reincarnator's present, however, remained fixed. Already established facts like his Spider-Man bloodline wouldn't vanish even if he prevented Peter Parker from being bitten. Li Ming's mind turned to Diana. From her account, he knew he'd been to Gotham in 1918 on the same timeline. Diana had tried to avoid affecting the future, but she still influenced events, fostering a friendship between Queen Hippolyta of Paradise Island and Queen Atlanta of Atlantis, for example. Yet Gotham's timeline had remained stable. If changes to the past always rewrote the present, he wouldn't have been sent back. Is there a way to return to the past on the same timeline, make subtle changes, and not cause the timeline to shift at all? He asked. Ding! World origin can be used to maintain the timeline. Reincarnators cannot do this, the Abyss responded. World origin, so that was the key. Reincarnators couldn't use it since they lacked source power. Li Ming's eyes brightened. So if it were me and I wanted to stabilize the timeline, would the Abyss assist me? The Abyss went silent for a beat. Communication with it often had that feeling of being on the edge of a cliff. Ding! Not recommended, unless the gain outweighs the consumption. There was a chance, then. Li Ming was now almost certain the Abyss had a hand in his trip to Gotham in 1918. Why? He had an inkling. He pushed on. If I could time travel, and also travel across different spaces, could I reach parallel spacetimes? He had thought of that after learning about time travel. Being able to move between parallel universes would be incredibly valuable. In the Marvel world, for example, his present came after Avengers 4 and the Infinity Stones were gone. If he could jump to a parallel universe that hadn't gone through that timeline, he might obtain the ruined Infinity Stones, or better. Access to alternate universes meant far more resources. Ding! Theoretically feasible, but requires the prerequisite ability to travel through different spaces, the Abyss replied. Li Ming laughed quietly. What a coincidence. He already knew someone with that ability. America Chavez, the boisterous girl from Doctor Strange 2, was born with multiverse travel, though she couldn't travel through time. He hadn't returned to the Marvel world earlier because he wanted a safe way to take America's ability. Now he had another option. Source power. In the film, Strange and Wanda could strip America of her power at the cost of her life. Li Ming could achieve a similar result using source power instead. The problem was his source power wasn't high enough. He needed at least one more advancement and an upgrade to his source power application, which required points. He wasn't in a rush. Boosting Iron Man armor productivity would earn those points, and the Reincarnators would fund it. If I can travel to parallel worlds, would the Abyss be able to acquire more world origin? He asked. Ding! Theoretically possible. Li Ming's smile widened. That gave him a reason to convince the Abyss to play along. He also began to see the bigger picture. Diana being sent to Gotham wasn't primarily to help Aquaman. It was to prove to his present self that the path was viable. He had already laid the groundwork by his own actions. Had anyone else told him that, he might have been skeptical, but he'd seen it happen, so he believed it. Back in the present, he had to pick the item to enhance. This opportunity came only once, so the enhancement had to target something he would always use and never discard. The Gotham Scepter came to mind, Lord's equipment that was invaluable to him and would remain in his possession. He thought it over carefully. I've decided, Li Ming said. Ding, please select the item to enhance. Teleportation Gate, he chose. Silence fell from the Abyss once more. Thanks to boundless weeds, how, as time passes, cultivate oneself and govern the family, it's hard to pick a Chunibu screen name. Shark Pepper 113, D's Speechless, Yoop Overbearing Leaks, and Drunk Falling Memory of Beauty for their monthly ticket support. Salute! Chapter 176. If you're going to play with parallel timelines. Ding, please specify which portal. This one. Li Ming raised his hand and a light blue vortex opened in the pristine white space. It was the same vortex portal he'd created himself after the Abyss upgraded his smuggling privilege during his last return. The Gotham Scepter was equipment, useful, but replaceable. The portal, however, was a privilege. So long as the Abyss didn't abandon him, he could use it. Would the Abyss ever betray him? Li Ming wasn't worried. He and the Abyss were now deeply bound. Besides, the Abyss couldn't even manage the batch of reincarnators who sold missions. If it had to deal with Li Ming, there'd be even more opportunities to profit. The portal counts as my item, right? Only I can open it? Li Ming sounded like he was bargaining. Ding, the Abyss-favored one's current Abyss portal has been replaced with a personal portal. A sudden cascade of insight flooded Li Ming's mind, knowledge of how to open portals. Before this, he'd only been using the Abyss's power via an Abyss privilege. Now the Abyss had taught him the method. That meant he could open portals on his own, even without the Abyss. No wonder the Abyss called it a personal portal. It truly was his now. Ding, the Abyss-favored one's personal portal's time travel effect has been enhanced. So that's how it was. The Abyss had first made the portal his personal possession, satisfying the conditions for a private item, and then enhanced it for him. The Abyss had gone to some trouble just to grant his request. Li Ming felt a genuine, brief warmth toward the Abyss, affection mingled with calculation. He wouldn't leave the Abyss. Loyalty paid dividends. Still, that didn't stop him from asking for more. Abyss, how can I make the portal capable of traveling to parallel timelines? You should have a solution, right? After all, Li Ming continued aloud, a parallel timeline would be another world origin, and since it's obtained outside the reincarnation space, no one would know. The Abyss no longer stayed silent. Ding, to strengthen the portal to the specified conditions, the following must be met. Time travel enhancement, completed. Space travel enhancement, not completed. Past time travel once, not completed. Future time travel once, not completed. Parallel space travel once, not completed. Not bad. 5 prerequisites, none impossibly demanding. He already had the time travel enhancement. Space travel enhancement was in progress. The 3 remaining tasks required 3 distinct trips to different worlds. Inspired by the mechanic's timeline manipulations, Li Ming decided to make this his next major goal. If he was going to play, he might as well play with parallel timelines. He sketched a plan. The past trip was already confirmed, Gotham 1918. He could go now. However, his current mission interval was only 30 days. After completing the next mission world, his count would reach 5 worlds, and his mission interval would extend to 1 year. That would be a better window. During that next mission world, he could attempt the future travel. Then, in the following exclusive world, he could enter the Marvel world and ask America to escort him through a parallel universe once. Finally, by absorbing America's ability, he'd complete the requirement. If he upgraded both source power advancement and source power application, and boosted analysis as well, he might not end up absorbing America to death. If analysis could be applied directly, all the better. Sir, the glasses are ready. Sunday, piloting the Mark 45, handed over a new pair of invisible glasses. Li Ming accepted them and put them on. Sunday, what's our current production capacity for the Mark II cut-down version? Sir, according to Friday's data, Gotham City's production lines can produce 20 sets of the Mark II cut-down version per week. Only 20 sets per week. That was pitiful. The number of reincarnators was massive. With that output, how could there ever be a significant butterfly effect? Gotham already had plenty of production lines, but because it's only 1991 in that world, acquiring large quantities of advanced materials without attracting attention was impossible, and processing them locally would take too long. Besides, Li Ming had no intention of turning Gotham into a logistics base. Powerful figures would arise there in the future. A single battle could wipe out the factories he'd painstakingly built. A world he completely controlled would be far better. If the next mission world were an unexplored state, if I could turn it into an exclusive world, how perfect would that be? Li Ming muttered to himself, making plans. Left alone in the white space, he tallied the spoils from his last world. The Guardian's necklace, ebony and ivory were already equipped. The advanced life potion was kept as a backup. The Windblade spell scroll was single-use, practical but not indispensable. Hado number 33, Sokatsui. That one was valuable, a hand-launched blast attack whose power scales with energy intensity. Li Ming intended to learn it. With his source power backing it, his Sokatsui wouldn't be just smoke and spectacle like Rukia's. E-grade gene optimization fluid? He found something new. The battle had been chaotic. He hadn't had time to inspect every item. E-grade gene optimization fluid quality. Ordinary type. Enhancement item holder. Li Ming. Effect raises the user's four-dimensional attributes to 40. Does not conflict with other enhancements. Not bad. It could elevate a person's four-dimensional attributes to 4 times normal and worked alongside other enhancements. Hobbs's squad clearly used this a lot. This was only E-grade. A or S-grade versions must be far more potent. Li Ming didn't need it himself, but he immediately thought of someone to give it to. Bruce. Batman was just an ordinary man and would benefit. He decided to hold on to it a little longer. Bruce was still improving, and something better might turn up. Li Ming then pulled out a glossy black bead, the Dark Crow orb. He chuckled. Anya, the Abyss Reincarnator, had lent it to him. Now it bore his name. Finally, points. He checked his balance. 69,816 points. For most Reincarnators, that was a fortune. For Li Ming, it was paltry, not enough to upgrade his source power even once. Ding! The Abyss-favored one's recruited Reincarnator squad has completed their first mission world. Would you like to view it? I almost forgot about Jerome and the others. Li Ming suddenly remembered his crew and nodded decisively. View. Chapter 177. Jerome Squad's Protection Mission. World ID 2001-825. Disconnected. Unexplored. Main Mission. Escort Mission Requirement. Ensure that no fewer than 4 members of the 8-person expedition team searching for blood orchids survive upon their return. Completion status, 2 survivors. Mission rating C. The Abyss first displayed the Reincarnation Squad's mission results. The requirement had been at least 4 survivors, but only 2 made it back, and yet they still received a C rating. Li Ming was a little surprised, until he remembered that because he had recruited the Reincarnation Squad, they could hand over spoils of war to improve their rating. Spoils of war obtained. Blood orchid, stone spider. Not bad spoils at all. When Li Ming saw the blood orchid, he immediately knew which world Jerome and his team had gone to. Anaconda. With the stone spider added, it had to be Anaconda 2. The hunt for the blood orchid. Those 2 items were among the most valuable things in that storyline. The mission score had been dragged up to a passing grade entirely by the spoils of war. Li Ming was curious how they'd handled the mission in that world. Even without knowing the plot, with the Reincarnation Squad setup, how hard could it be? Ding, do you want to view the mission process? The Abyss prompted. Li Ming nodded. Ding, mission playback initiated. Like when their identities had been implanted, Jerome and the others' experiences played out in his mind like a movie. After watching, Li Ming fell silent for a long moment before finally saying, "They really are." From Gotham. Anaconda 2 was a simple horror movie. A struggling biotech company was saved when a biologist named Jack presented his final project to the board, the blood orchid. In theory, organisms' cell divisions were limited, which capped lifespans. The blood orchid contained an ingredient that extended cell life and broke that limit, potentially a path to human immortality. Jack led 6 team members, found a boat locally, hired 2 crewmen, and set off as an 8-person expedition. The orchids grew in the habitat of anacondas, which ate the plants and mutated into giant pythons. Jack's team fought to survive the snakes, and in the original plot, only 4 people escaped. The film's female lead was Jack's assistant, Sam, the male lead, the hired captain, Bill Johnson. Jack himself was a villain who ultimately died. The other expedition members weren't important, because they all died. Jerome's 5-person team had been dropped into Palang Province, Borneo. They didn't know the plot ahead of time, didn't know who the mission targets were, and oddly had received no faction effect when their Abyss identities were implanted. That didn't stop them. Mad Hatter, Fish, and Poison Ivy, 3 with mind control abilities, split up and quickly found that a foreign expedition wanted to hire a boat to go upriver. It was the rainy season. No shipping company wanted the risk. Eventually, the team paid high fees and found a foreign captain to take them. A typical reincarnator might try to sneak aboard, or a clever one would bring a safer, larger boat and then invite the plot characters along. Jerome's group did find a large iron vessel with about 10 crew members, no money exchanged, and the crew had been persuaded into joining. They invited Jack and his party aboard, but Jerome's invitation had a very Gotham flavor. They tied up Jack's entire expedition and brought them on the boat. Jerome argued that if they were supposed to protect the expedition, they shouldn't let them wander. The others agreed. Because it was their first mission world, they still felt a twinge of reverence for the plot characters and refrained from using full mind control. Jerome interrogated them, by torture, until he understood the purpose of their trip, then revealed his group's origins. They returned together to the expedition's starting point. The plot characters were stunned. 5 bizarrely dressed strangers had violently kidnapped them, only to stick around and protect them? It didn't make sense. As they pushed deeper into the rainforest, Poison Ivy, the most sensitive to plants, noted something odd, as if something was drawing them in. Before she could trace it, giant pythons struck. While still in the river, they were attacked, and a crew member died. But Jerome and his crew were Gotham villains. They might travel light in some ways, but they always had weapons. The weapons stashed on the boat were enough to fight a small county. They quickly killed the attacking python and continued upriver. Their boat was far better than Bill's decrepit craft in the film, so they had no trouble navigating the river and reached the orchids area faster. Jerome's disregard for human life terrified the expedition team. They were convinced Jerome would kill them once he got what he wanted. One night, panic erupted. The expedition team, 6 men and 2 women, turned desperate and violent. Originally, they planned to seize the boat, but with too many crewmen aboard, they instead tried to escape into the jungle. The expedition became a frantic run for survival. Poison Ivy managed to stop some by controlling plants, but by then, most of the expedition members were already dead. Under duress, and thanks to brute force and the squad's ruthless tactics, Jerome's team did find the blood orchid. When they returned, only the male and female leads from the expedition were alive. The stone spider had been caught by Scarecrow along the way. In Anaconda, the stone spider's bite causes full-body paralysis like petrification. Scarecrow was fascinated and collected several to experiment on. Without the blood orchid and stone spider, the Reincarnation Squad's first mission would have been a failure. By the letter of the mission, they hadn't met the requirement. By the value of what they brought back, they had the most valuable items from that plot. Ming frowned, then relaxed. Why worry about mission ratings? The spoils of war mattered most. As recruiter, Ming had the first pick of the items handed over. They'd given him several blood orchids and stone spiders, though he had no place to store them yet. He'd take them to Hugo for research once he returned to Gotham. Why didn't they have a faction effect? Ming asked. Ding, faction effect is being evaluated, the Abyss replied. Ming didn't press on the meaning of evaluated. He asked instead, can I go to their location? He wanted to explain mission basics to them. Before, Jerome and the others hadn't been reincarnators, so he couldn't reveal too much. Now he could. The Abyss opened a swirling portal for him. After stowing the blood orchids and stone spiders in his pure white space, Ming spent 14,000 points in the analysis panel to exchange for 7 vials of weakened version T103 Tyrant Blood Evolution Fluid, then stepped through the portal into another pure white chamber. As soon as he emerged, he heard Fish's voice. I've always said anyone can be killed, except the mission targets. You also beat to death a mission target who tried to take you hostage, Jerome answered, laughing. Just because he said you looked like a lizard. Ha! Fish continued. If you hadn't thrown 2 more people to the anacondas at the end, we'd have had 4 survivors. Ming said nothing and listened, secretly entertained. Chapter 178. The Iron Man armor in short supply. Happy National Day. Jerome and the others immediately noticed Ming approaching and quickly stopped their argument. It had mostly been Jerome sparring with Fish. Everyone else had been watching the show. So you started in fighting right after finishing your first mission world? Ming asked, amused. Recruiting all villains had its perks. He didn't have to manage their feelings. He could just enjoy the spectacle. Your Excellency Li Ming, I strongly recommend replacing the captain. Fish didn't beat around the bush. Jerome's reckless. He acts on his own whims and pays no attention to the mission. The reincarnation squad were all rookies and took Li Ming's ability to drop by their settlement space for granted. I've told you, Fish. Li Ming spread his hands, signaling he wouldn't interfere. If there's a dispute over the captain, you can decide it yourselves after the first mission ends. Fish smiled. And how do you propose we decide? You'll decide, not just you. Li Ming pointed at Poison Ivy, Scarecrow, and Mad Hatter. Anyone can compete for captain. Mad Hatter and Scarecrow showed nothing, but Poison Ivy's eyes lit up. In the Anaconda world, she'd been the unquestioned MVP. The tropical rainforest was her terrain. Whether locating the blood orchid or picking it, Ivy had repeatedly played a crucial role, even controlling plants to protect teammates. If Fish wanted to be captain, why couldn't she? How do we compete, she asked. Doesn't matter how, Li Ming said lightly. Just decide among yourselves. Then he turned serious. But the basic missions still need to be completed. Not everyone can be lucky enough to boost their ratings with every piece of loot. My requirements are simple, Li Ming continued. Finish the mission and get as much loot as possible. As long as you hit those 2 marks, no one will care what you do in the mission world. He fixed his gaze on Jerome. Mission failure is game over. You're the captain, responsible for keeping your teammates from going too far. I can understand why they're unhappy now. Jerome put a hand to his chest in mock sincerity. It's fine. Team conflict is one of the comedic techniques. Li Ming's face sobered. I should remind you, after 3 worlds, you'll run into a faction confrontation world, directly opposing reincarnators from other factions. The kind where it's fight to the death, Fish said, his tone going cold. So if you can't rack up enough enhancements in the remaining 2 worlds, I'll most likely have to find new teammates, Li Ming added without emotion. The squad perked up. This was literally a matter of life and death. Li Ming checked another thing off his mind. Your physical ailments have all been cured, right? They're cured. Fish nodded. The squad had all been resurrected or mutated and carried physical issues. In Gotham, Li Ming had given them Lazarus Pit water, and now, back in their home space, the side effects of that water had also been cleared up. About the space, after you go out, someone will introduce it to you. Note that all special abilities are ineffective within the space. Li Ming didn't intend to be their guide. He wouldn't interfere with how Jerome and the others chose to enhance themselves. His goal was to reap the benefits. But he did stress one critical point. Most important, never reveal you're from the Abyss and never disclose any information about me. Why? Poison Ivy asked. You want to be ganged up on by everyone? Li Ming smiled. I thought you were more positive than that. Ivy's expression flickered, but she saw no surprise from the others. Then Ming said something that froze the room. Tetch once said something I don't particularly like, but it's accurate. He glanced at Mad Hatter, who was suddenly nervous, and repeated the line, "The King of Gotham is the biggest crime boss." Every face changed. Mad Hatter had only said that in the mission world. Nobody expected Li Ming to use the exact words. Didn't that mean Li Ming had been watching their actions in the mission world the whole time? Li Ming was satisfied with their reactions. All right, he said. I hope to see you alive when you return. He tapped the ground casually with the Gotham scepter set before them, and a swirling portal opened. Li Ming stepped through directly to the reincarnation space. Back in the Abyss's exchange center, his mind was all business. He hadn't planned to show himself in the Abyss. After transferring the Dark Crow orb, everyone there probably thought he was dead. He'd remain low profile and aim to surprise them during the next faction confrontation. First, he checked what he needed for the next upgrades. Source Power Advancement ELV.2 cost 300,000 points. Source Power Application ELV.3 cost 600,000 points. Together, that was 900,000 points. Because he held the Abyss Favored One title, his price was halved, 450,000 points. He'd only spent 120,000 last time, but the next tiers looked even steeper. It sounded huge, but when he did the math, it became clearer. Each Mark II Iron Man armor yielded 1,200 points, so he'd need 375 sets to hit 450,000 points. While he was in Mission Worlds, Gotham's production progressed in real time at a 1-to-1 ratio, but the Marvel World's time flowed differently, intentionally slowed to 3-to-1 so he wouldn't miss the Doctor Strange 2 storyline. As a result, Mark II production was only 20 sets per week. Ming could stay for about 30 days in the Mission World, plus 7 days in the Terminator world, so Gotham could produce at most around 105 sets in that time, far short of the 375 needed, and the points required for the next exchange would probably spike even more. Increasing production capacity was urgent. There was one bright spot. Demand was huge. Ming checked the trading interface's buy requests. There were over 1,200 requests for the Mark II, listed as Iron Man armor. The first wave of reincarnators who bought Mark II had already tasted its benefits. In other words, there were already victims of the Iron Man armor. He went to Gotham, collected the 21 Mark II sets that had already been produced, and swapped Friday for Sunday. He didn't encounter anyone there, then returned to the reincarnation space and placed the 7 weakened version T-103 Tyrant Blood Evolution fluids and the 21 Iron Man armor sets on the shelves. After that, he headed back to the training ground. He hadn't planned to exchange anything just yet, but he could still study source power and cultivate Azure Firefall to improve his own strength. Some diligence was still necessary. Thanks to Xingfeng Yunying, Ju Shi Bike, Yup Domineeringly Exposed, Lala Prafum Bookfriend 2006 257 771, Reader 2020 01 30 2746 37. Meng Tai Book Friend 28204 Nhar 3 16273. Lao Siji Daiwo 233 Yi Guan. Kang Hai Shi Huang Han Confidence is Smealing. Ultimate Invincible. Long Aoshin Yuhua Deng. Shan 233 Qing Simeng Long Vast. Weeds and thanks to the 16 great contributors for monthly votes and support. Happy National Day, everyone. Today's extra chapter. Haha. Please keep supporting. Celebrating Our Motherland. Chapter 179, I Love the Abyss, second update. The Bloodline Evolution Fluid and the Iron Man armor sold out in 20 days. During that time, Ming made another trip to Gotham and sold a total of 50 sets of Iron Man armor. Between the Evolution Fluid sales and the armor, he earned 100,350 points. That brought him to 156,166 points, just enough to redeem Source Power Advancement War. Ming wasn't the kind to hoard points when he could improve his strength, so he exchanged immediately. He also spent 100 points to socket the Anya gem into the Gotham Scepter, filling the gem slot. With a black gem and a blue gem at its head, the Scepter looked even more refined. The boost from Source Power Advancement 2 was enormous. The quality of his source power increased significantly. When Ming formed a lightning chain with his hands, it easily hit level 7 power. He could also fly using source power now, though not at high speeds. After taking a moment to get used to the enhanced source power, Ming's mission countdown ended. Before leaving, he sold one last batch of Iron Man armor. After that sale, he had 32,466 points left, which he routinely reserved for the Mission World. Searching for Mission World, World ID 2002-3005 connected. Teleportation gate opened, countdown 1 minute. Advice from the Abyss, survive. Ming, familiar with the procedure, walked into the teleportation gate and arrived in a small, pleasant town bathed in sunshine. Abyss faction effect activated, identity implanted. Ming's identity this time was a rookie police officer at the Raccoon City Police Department, United States. It was his first day on the job, and he was just about to report to the station. The city name and the identity felt painfully familiar. If he hadn't changed his hair color, he might have thought he was Leon S. Kennedy. The current year was 2002, so Ming knew he was in the movie version of the Resident Evil world. The T-virus had not yet been widely leaked. He wasn't worried about the virus yet. He was waiting for the Abyss's next prompt. Ding. World list being retrieved. Retrieval successful. Current world is unexplored. Can be converted into an exclusive world upon completion of the main mission. Oh yeah, Ming couldn't help clenching his fist in celebration. The movie version of Resident Evil perfectly fit the processing plant scenario he'd been hoping for. First, the technology level was high. Umbrella Corporation's biotech had reached its peak, capable of cloning people at will and even replicating memories. Second, the opposing forces were relatively weak. Although Umbrella had devastated the world, they relied mainly on biochemical means. After the company's senior executives went into dormancy, control of the corporation had mostly passed to the artificial intelligence Red Queen and a virus-enhanced Wesker. Red Queen had some self-awareness, but compared to Ming's Skynet, she was like a holographic child. Wesker wasn't a real threat either. A mirror dimension could handle him. If he breached Red Queen, Umbrella would practically fall under his control. Abyss, I love you, Ming laughed. Main mission activated. Main mission, Savior mission requirement, resolve the T-virus crisis and raise human world reputation to revered. Mission evaluation will be based on final completion time. Note, mission evaluation must reach C rank to be considered complete. Huh? Ming frowned. This, his fifth mission since he'd entered the reincarnation space, suddenly felt a lot tougher. Resolve the T-virus crisis? If a reincarnator who didn't know the plot got this mission, they might have to wait until the final installment, 10 years later, to learn whether Umbrella ever developed an antidote. The Resident Evil movies were notoriously fragmented. Characters' powers and roles changed from film to film. Red Queen, Wesker, Alice, everything shifted. One movie would make Red Queen the villain and Wesker an ally. Another would flip the script. Even if an antidote existed in some later film, timing and reputation mattered. Ming would still need to raise the human faction's opinion of him to complete the mission. In short, this world's mission could take a long time. But Ming wasn't a typical reincarnator. His primary goal was to find a logistics world, and Resident Evil fit that perfectly. As for the mission, which was easier to win over, 7 billion people or 4,000? The thought popped into his head immediately. He could do nothing and wait 10 years for the plot to play out. When only a few thousand survivors remained, he could swoop in with an antidote and save them. Umbrella wanted to wipe out humanity and take control. Ming would simply reap the benefits. Wouldn't saving a few thousand people still make him a savior? Even if that only netted a C-rank mission evaluation, that would be enough to convert the world into his exclusive one. He didn't have to chase an S rank if a lower rank was more advantageous. Controlling a world outright was far more valuable. Besides, he had a time teleportation gate. He didn't need to wait 10 years. He wasn't going to contact the plot characters now, and he wasn't going to report to the police station. He connected Sunday to the network and gave instructions. There's a large underground base in this city with an artificial intelligence inside. Can you find it? Found it, sir, Sunday replied quickly. Good. Can you control her? Yes, sir. Do you want me to? Yes, Ming nodded. How long will it take? Already controlled, sir. Well done. Sunday was exactly what he expected, a hybrid of Skynet and Friday, far superior to AIs like Red Queen that hadn't broken through their underlying limits. Search the database, Ming ordered. Focus on whether the T-virus has leaked and any clues about a T-virus antidote. Sunday fed the results directly to his invisible contact lenses. The T-virus had just leaked. The hive was already in chaos. Red Queen had locked up the employees and was performing a so-called harmless disposal on all of them. Red Queen's original intent had been to prevent the leak, but the squad Umbrella had sent in tonight would trigger the prelude to the apocalypse. And production of an antidote was already underway. Ming had Sunday take control of Red Queen and erase all traces. To avoid a butterfly effect, he planned not to leave Sunday behind. He did, however, order Red Queen to keep backups of all Umbrella research data so that important research wouldn't be lost if any base was destroyed. That was mainly to stop Protagonist Alice from going on a rampage and destroying the research data he cared about most. Ming closed his eyes and prepared to activate the time teleportation gate. He instantly felt how much source power the jump would consume. If he hadn't upgraded his source power, he couldn't have traveled a full 10 years into the future in a single leap. Buzz. A pale blue, swirling teleportation gate opened. Goodbye, Raccoon City. Thanks for the monthly ticket support from the great Denglin Ding Dang Sichuan Shuo. I'm adding an extra chapter proactively. I'm so sincere. Seeking all kinds of support, haha. Chapter 180, Ming's Epic Enhancement, third update. Time travel was a strange, dizzying experience. The world twisted and blurred around Li Ming until everything moved too fast to make out, and then it stopped. He stepped out of the portal into the exact spot he had left, but the surroundings had changed beyond recognition. The modern city that had once stood here was a wasteland of ruins. A massive crater yawned nearby, with stagnant pools of water in places. This was the crater left by the nuclear strike at the end of Resident Evil 2. Li Ming checked the Abyss List's mission sheet. Time travel to the future once completed. Success. Sunday, he said. Red Queen is under control, report. Sunday responded immediately and projected the current state of the world for him. Only 4,588 humans remained across the globe. Every one of them was under the Red Queen's surveillance, and the number was still falling because of the overwhelming hordes of undead. Li Ming set a portable projector on the ground. Bring up the Red Queen. The Red Queen manifested as a small girl with red accents a second later. She no longer answered to Umbrella. She was fully obedient to Li Ming. In this form, she was far less menacing than the feral little AI from the films, almost endearing. The image also made a certain meta-joke land. Alice had been helped by the Red Queen in the movies, and in the film world, the actress who played Alice, Mila Jovovich, and director Paul W.S. Anderson had a daughter, Ever Anderson, who briefly played the Red Queen. Li Ming couldn't help a grin. "Hello, Black Widow," he quipped, thinking of Ever Anderson's cameo as a young Natasha in a Marvel movie. Then he turned serious. "Have you contacted Alice about the airborne T-virus antidote?" "No," the Red Queen replied. "Alice has just awakened and is unaware of the existence of the airborne antiviral." "Good," Li Ming thought. "Don't tell her. Lure her to Raccoon City." He didn't care for Alice herself, but she was a strong candidate to lead the survivors, and he had no intention of giving away the antiviral. Keeping people constantly under threat would help consolidate his authority. He ordered Sunday to upgrade the Red Queen's capabilities, enhance her systems, and improve her performance, but modify her core AI only enough so she would obey Li Ming and no one else. The Red Queen would handle Umbrella-related affairs, nothing more. Umbrella had once been more powerful than any faction Li Ming had faced, rivaling the High Table in reach. When the Raccoon City outbreak first escalated, Umbrella had even detonated a nuclear bomb on United States soil to contain the disaster. A decade of catastrophe had killed most of their leadership. Only the most essential figures lay dormant in hive hibernation pods, waiting to awaken and enact Umbrella's plan to remake the world. Their arrogance came from biotechnology. Umbrella could accelerate development, grow embryos into fully mature adults rapidly, and transfer memories into clones, essentially producing a person with decades of experience in a single day. Between cloning, memory transfer, and advanced virology, including systems to control infected creatures, Umbrella believed they could simply rebuild humanity from their own designs. Now, all that belonged to Li Ming. With Sunday's computing power integrated against Umbrella's assets, Li Ming moved fast. He donned the repaired Mark 45 armor, boarded a freighter, and launched a fleet of several hundred Terminator-class robots under Sunday's control. These machines would establish robot production lines and Iron Man armor manufacture around the globe. Zombies preyed on flesh and blood. Machines could work unmolested. Li Ming planned to use the Earth's resources without restraint. His directive to Sunday was methodical. First produce standard Terminators and functional Iron Man suits to create a complete industrial base. Once production scaled, they would mass-produce stripped-down Mark II units to ferry back to the Reincarnation space for points. He also set the Red Queen to work. Li Ming handed her the blood orchid and stone spiders retrieved by the Jerome Squad from the Anaconda mission and ordered research into them. Umbrella's scattered clone populations would be recovered at their supply points and evaluated. Clones that could be reliably controlled would be assigned to build robot factories, while any clones that posed a risk of breaking free were to be terminated on the spot. At the same time, the Red Queen began mass-producing utility clones and rebuilding Umbrella's biochemical testing facility in London. The Tokyo and Arctic bases had been destroyed by Alice, but London still offered a large complex to repurpose. There were almost no people left on Earth now, so Li Ming abandoned any pretense of secrecy. Environmental concerns and livability standards were irrelevant. Sunday simulated and optimized for raw output. According to the simulations, within 8 months they could reach a production capacity of 3,000 stripped-down Mark II units per month. That would roughly match the number of low-level reincarnators in the reincarnation space, preventing backlog. Beyond that, the Iron Man factories would need to produce the Iron Legion. Ming upgraded the Iron Legion significantly. He replaced their Mark III baseline with the Mark VII, the suit Tony Stark used in the Avengers assault on New York, improving performance, firepower, and crucially, wearability. With the Mark VII platform, Ming could coordinate seamlessly with the Iron Legion and swap into a fresh suit immediately if his armor was damaged. Sunday took full command of the Iron Legion, enabling truly seamless coordination. He integrated the Terminators and general-purpose robots into a coordinated force structure, Iron Man suits as air support, robot legions as massed ground units, and Terminators as elite infiltration and strike teams. The result was a far more potent combined arms force. And there was another component. Ming now had a biochemical legion. Thanks to Umbrella's biotech and the control systems he now owned, he could field engineered infected and controlled bioorganisms as another tier of force, turning Umbrella's worst weapons into assets under his command. Ming stood on the ruined shoreline and watched his plans unfold across a world that had been scorched and remade. With Sunday, the Red Queen, Umbrella's facilities, and new factories churning out iron and bioweapons alike, he was consolidating a power that would remake the post-apocalyptic Earth according to his design.